Hey, meatards. What's going on, everybody? We got another episode of Eat Meat and Make Families. We got a bunch of people waiting. Got Frank TUFANO coming on the second hour. First hour, we're going to talk about all sorts of fun stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about Polynesians, the healthy animal food-based diet of Polynesian people. So we've been talking a little bit about this book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. My copy, which is massively degenerated. So much that I even got a new copy. A new copy is an old copy, though. I like the new copy. The new copy is from like 1979. All right, let me pull up my... Boom. I'll do a little bit of administrative stuff first, though. Let's see. We got a bunch of people in the live chat. What's up, everybody? The last episode, who was the last episode? We talked to Phil Escott last week. Then after that, I forget who was after that. We've had so many awesome guests, it's ridiculous. On Thursday, I'm going to be talking to Kasumi Chris. Shout out to Kasumi Chris. Kasumi Chris was a 4-year-long vegan. She was 4 years on a vegan diet, and we're going to be doing a little talk about her experience with veganism, why she left the ethical vegan movement. Ethical veganism. We're going to talk about why Kasumi Chris had to stop her vegan diet in order to stop her degeneration, why she's eating animal foods again to regain her health. Like many people... Oh, Jay Dyer, that's who it was. Jay was the last one. That was like one of the best interviews on this show. Wasn't really even... I don't even do interviews. Come on. We do conversations. I have a guest on, and I run my mouth a bunch, and the guest says a few things. Let's be honest. That's what happens on this show. Jay freaking Dyer. My man, Jay Dyer. That was an awesome episode, so check out that last one. We got to watch a little bit of my boy, Nature Boy. Peace Reflections. We watched all sorts of funny vegan cult videos last time. That was fun. So, yeah, Jay Dyer came on the last stream. Great time. Had Phil Escott on the stream before that. Today, Frank TUFANO. And then on Thursday, Kasumi Chris is coming on. So, yeah, guys, this whole plant-based diet thing that we've been breaking down, showing the audience here how this so-called grassroots movement really isn't as grassroots as we'd like to think, right? That's why we got all these freaking celebrities parading around in PETA ads for the last like couple decades. Oh, I got a prop. Oh, clickbait. What's up, puppy? This puppy's crazy. He's harassing Duke. Duke's about to retire. We might have to put our oldest dog down this week. He had a really good run, but he's not eating much, and he doesn't seem like he wants to be around. We got this little puppy around. A little guard dog. It's pretty crazy. What's up, dude? He's learning the ropes. He's learning what it takes to be around our crazy house with our crazy kids. I can't even look at Dave Navarro anymore. Look at this dude. Look at those nipple rings. Oh, he's so sultry. Dave Navarro. So sexy. PETA. So hot right now. This is part of the cultural zeitgeist that we're seeing today. The pushing of these so-called plant-based diets as if it's enlightening. As if this is some sort of spiritual thing. Right? Not eating meat. Starving yourself of the animal foods that you need. The animal foods that, without these foods, our ancestors wouldn't be alive. Wouldn't have been alive to have given birth to their progeny, which then allowed us to be alive. So you got PETA. I'm not sure what this has to do with PETA. We got a picture here of two dudes fondling a woman, all three of them naked. So I guess, group sex for the animals. Most people see this and they don't really understand. But when you actually understand kind of the cultural programming behind all of this movement, the dehumanization of people, the humanization of animals, the Disneyfication of your vision of what nature truly is, and the hypersexualization of people, right? The divorcing of sex from procreation. Hey, chill out, puppy. Come here. Ribeye. Come here. Someone want to come get ribeye? Anyways. The hypersexualization of children even. You know, you got Disney, ABC, all these television shows sexualizing kids at a young age. But giving you this perverse version of sexuality. Telling you it's not okay if you're a boy or a girl. You've got to be something else. It's not okay if you eat bacon and eggs for breakfast. If you're having steaks. It's not okay to eat saturated fats. We want to be enlightened. We want to eat soy burgers. Right? Picture of Pamela Anderson here. It's like a famous PETA ad. And they redo this ad with loads of other celebrities. So, essentially, programming us to believe that animals are people and people are animals. You're just an animal. You're just a beast. Behave like a beast. Live like a beast. Act like a beast. PETA. Funny little organization there. You know, so we've got all this vegan activism, this Walmart hacktivism. Attention all Walmart shoppers. Please come to aisle 5 for your vegan activist Guy Fawkes masks and your eye max so you can show all the lowly natives how to be enlightened by eating soy burgers and Beyond Burgers funded by Tyson Meats, Cargill, Bill Gates, and General Mills. Attention all Walmart shoppers. Please get your Vegan for the Animals t-shirt on aisle 5. 50% off, straight from China. Don't worry, we feed our Chinese slaves vegan diets, just like our new American slaves. So we've got the mental illness spreading at a rapid pace. You got people trying to debunk ketogenic diets, debunk the so-called carnivore diet, the carnivore diet. As if there's any such thing as the carnivore diet, right? There's a million different ways to eat a carnivorous style diet. Now, the way that we teach it is much different. Plant-based news. Got Klaus. Klaus at Plant-based News. Hi, this is Klaus from Plant-based News. I've got this new video. It's amazing. We've got this doctor who's going to totally debunk ketogenic diets. He's going to talk about all 3 of these rat studies that we cherry-picked to tell you about why ketogenic diets are bad. I just can't wait to get my new Beyond Burger from Tyson Foods and General Mills. Oh, Klaus from... all the celebrities are going vegan. This is just amazing. It's Plant-based News. This is another episode of Plant-based News. I'm going to talk about all the celebrities today. You know, you've got this low-level vegan activism, and it's pathetic, right? People are looking for identity. People are looking for something to latch onto. Like we say here all the time, you're far more than what you eat. So, let's get into this little chapter from Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. It's the first published in 1939 book by Dr. Weston A. Price. And it's all about the degeneration of cultures through food. All right, remember Henry Kissinger told a journalist, allegedly, this journalist claimed that Henry Kissinger made this quote, but he did talk about food as a weapon. He told this journalist, you control oil, you control nations. You control food, and you control the people. Right? So Henry Kissinger was famous for implementing food as a weapon. Right? The politicization of global agribusiness, the erection of Cargill, and these huge multinational grain conglomerates, which took over small family farms. And we're going to talk about a lot of this, I think probably on Thursday. We're going to get a little bit into some of the research. This is a pretty good book that lays a lot of it out. It's pretty short. Seeds of Destruction by F. William Engdahl. Pretty decent book. Guy does some good research, and he actually cites his sources, his primary sources. All right, so I'm a history nerd. I'm really into history, anthropology. The history of the weaponization of anthropology, which is what we're seeing here. Which is what Weston A. Price, whether he knew it or not, was actually documenting. So let's get into this, guys. Weston Price's chapter on healthy diets of Polynesians. So remember, Weston Price was traveling the world looking for cultures who were free of the modern degeneration that we see in American and British cultures and the Anglo-American Empire and the European cultures that have been taken over by the global monoculture, by these McFoods that you've been given, by this Hollywoodization of the world. Bertrand Russell in his book, The Scientific Outlook, which is basically a religious text, a propaganda text. I suggest everybody read this book. Bertrand Russell, supposedly this great philosopher, the greatest logician of the 20th century, a member of the Royal Society, friends with the Huxleys. Right, this social Darwinist, materialist, rationalist, said that Hollywood is the new religion. Hollywood is the new church. And it's the global religion. And that people look to Hollywood stars as their idols. People look to these Hollywood stars as if they hung the stars. They look to Hollywood for their mythology. They look to Hollywood for their new theology. And this whole new fake theology about it, go green, go vegan, go green. Go green, starve yourself. Go green. Reduce the human population. That's what we're seeing. So let's get into it. Weston A. Price's book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. He traveled the world looking at these cultures that were not in contact with the modern dietary foods, what he called the foods of commerce. He also called them the white man's food, which I've said many times, like, it's kind of a misnomer to say white man's foods, because he visited these the Hebrides Islands, as well as Swiss populations, where they had no tuberculosis, where their teeth were perfectly straight, and they didn't have the modern degenerative diseases. But as soon as they traded away those foods for the skim milk, they stopped eating the fats, and they started using the processed, refined grains and the white sugar. These vegan, enlightened foods. They lost their heritage foods, and their bodies and their morality all degenerated. The culture's degenerated. So this whole movement, this whole transgenic seed movement, this is not the entire green movement, the green revolution, right? These are not beneficial things for humanity. These are PR terms, Edward Bernays style PR terms, Orwellian style PR terms for the seeds of destruction, the seeds of democracy. We must bring democracy to Iraq. We must. We must bring democracy to Egypt. We must bring democracy to Libya. We must bring democracy to North Korea. We must bring This is a global movement, right? And the food is one aspect of this. So we're not planting the seeds of progress with the so-called Green Revolution. We're planting the seeds of genocide. The Green Revolution is the genocide of small family farms, the genocide of non-urban populations, and the urbanization and the robbing of the third world. As we're going to get into, Henry Kissinger and his policies, a lot of them written by guys like Pierce from Cargill, who you might not have ever heard of, but this is one of the biggest grain conglomerates and grain trading international corporations in the world. So this whole go green thing, this stems from the Green Revolution, which started from hundreds of millions of dollars of money being pumped into it through NGOs like the Rockefeller Foundation, which was set up to maintain generational control over oil resources, mineral resources for the Rockefeller family. Right? So the sons of John Rockefeller, Nelson Rockefeller, David Rockefeller, these guys actually sought out and hired. Henry Kissinger was actually hired by Rockefeller, I think in the 1930s, or maybe it was the 1940s. Kissinger ended up a major policy player. He was Secretary of State under Nixon, Secretary of State under, was it Johnson or Ford? And he drove much of the policy towards the third world. He penned this famous National Security State Memorandum 200, all about depopulation of the third world to control the resources of the third world, and to use food as a weapon. And Henry Kissinger was majorly involved in the pushing of all these policies and the so-called Green Revolution. So you think that because green is the color of grass and plants, that it's somehow enlightening and good. These are propaganda terms now, guys. I'm all about conservation of vital lands, of restoration of the soil, of organic, natural foods, of a natural human diet, right? But what we're seeing here, the so-called Green Revolution, is the exact opposite. It's the destruction of our topsoil. It's the erection of Monsanto, Cargill, these giant grain companies who took over the animal agriculture industry. And now they're going to remove the middleman. They've already destroyed animal agriculture in the last 40 years. Agriculture, and they turn it into agribusiness, global agribusiness. Now they're ready to remove global agribusiness, or not agribusiness, but the animal sector, and feed the grain and cellulose directly to the betas, directly to the slaves, directly to the serfs. So the isolated and modernized Polynesians lived without these foods. The people inhabiting some islands. He calls them a primitive race, right? So the primitive races, according to Weston Price in the 1930s when he was traveling, being these races that were not subject to modern degenerative diseases. They had straight hair, oval features, happy, buoyant dispositions, and splendid physiques. When the Pacific Islands were discovered, the Polynesians were found inhabiting the Hawaiian Islands, the Marquesas Islands, the Tuamotu group, including Tahiti, the Cook Islands, Tongan Islands, and the Samoan group. So few, if any, of the primitive racial stocks in the South Sea Islands were so enthusiastically extolled for their beauty and excellence of physical development by the early navigators. Much tooth decay prevails today. They reported the Marquesans as vivacious, happy people, numbering over 100,000 on the 7 principal islands of this group. Probably in few places in the world can so distressing a picture be seen today as is found there. A French government official told me that the native population had decreased to about 2,000, chiefly as a result of the ravages of tuberculosis. Remember, this is the same disease, tuberculosis, that was ravaging these other people. As soon as they got rid of their animal-based foods, started eating the wheat, started eating the sugar instead of their animal foods, started eating the soy boy degeneration foods. So they had epidemics of smallpox and measles, which took a heavy toll. So just massive hit to their immune systems. In a group of approximately 100 adults and children, I counted 10 who were emaciated and coughing with typical signs of tuberculosis. Many were waiting for treatment at the dispensary 8 hours before the hour it opened. Lots of sick, dying people in this primitive groups, he said. They have largely ceased to depend on the sea for food. Tooth decay was rampant. At the time of examination, 36.9% of the teeth of the people using trade food, in conjunction with the land plants and fruits, had been attacked by tooth decay. The individuals living entirely on native foods were few. Some early navigators were so highly impressed with the beauty and health of these people that they reported the Marquesas Islands as the Garden of Eden. Tahiti is the principal island of the Society Group. It's situated 17 degrees south of the equator, 149 degrees west latitude. Degeneration has not been so rapid nor so severe here. The Tahitian population, however, has reduced from over 200,000, as early estimated, to a present native population estimated at about 10,000. See what this does? As soon as these foods are introduced, fertility rates drop. They stop having babies. The mouth narrows. Right, the mouth narrows up. The mouth begins to narrow. The birth canal narrows. They become emaciated. They become sickly. And they start looking Like many of the populations we see today that are ravaged by autoimmune conditions, by seriously degenerative diseases, by destroyed gut microbiomes, from all the pesticides being used. And back then, this was before the rampant use of pesticides as well. This was before the rampant use of antibiotics as well. So it's worse now. It's far worse now. Now, we're not allowed to have raw milk now. In many states in the United States, raw milk is illegal. Raw cream is hard to find. You're told that skim milk is good for you. Now you're told that no milk is good for you, right? Because you pulled the milk fats out of it. You pulled the live enzymes out of it. You've pasteurized it. Right? You keep the cream for the queen. And you give the serfs the skim milk. The shit we give to our chickens. And you degenerate the lower classes when you do this. So this is what happened to these people, these Tahitians, these Polynesians, these beautiful populations of healthy, happy people. And their lives are destroyed by this. Their cultures are destroyed. So the Tahitian population, however, has reduced from over 200,000 to a present 10,000. Massive, just total genocide of these populations. These islands are also part of the French Oceania. Many of the able-bodied men were taken from these French islands to France to fight in the World War. So they go to fight the bankers' wars. They're given the bankers' foods, and then they go get to fight the bankers' wars. The Enlightenment wars, right? Well, we got to stop them evil Germans. We got to stop the Prussian Empire. Massive human sacrifices. Millions of people dying for the reorganization of the map. These psychopathic wars. The Tahitians are a buoyant, light-hearted race, fully conscious, however, of their rapid decline in numbers and health. Many of the more primitive are very fine-looking and have excellent dental arches, as seen in Figure 33. So Figure 33 being this figure, these are the people who are eating the seafood still. These are the people eating their native diet. Here's what happens when they get on the enlightened plant-based diet. It's just amazing. Like, look at their teeth. Their teeth, they look so enlightened. You know, with teeth like that, they can give YouTube health advice. The capital of Tahiti is the administrative center for the French Pacific possessions. It has a large foreign population. There is considerable commerce in and out of the port. Much imported food is used. Like on the Marquesas Island, it was difficult to find large numbers of individuals living entirely on the native foods. Those that were found had complete immunity to dental caries. All right, so the ones that they found look like this. Oops. Complete immunity to dental caries is the ones that are just eating the native seafoods, the animal foods. On the sugar and the wheat and the imported foods, the jams, the marmalades, the processed shit. This is what it does to them. That's what it does to their teeth. Look at their countenances. You can see the sickness in these people's eyes. They've had their culture robbed from them, their meaning robbed from them. And this is before they even had television and the wonders of VR porn and Facebook. Now that's what we have. For the natives living in part on trade food, chiefly white flour, sugar, and canned goods, 31.9% of the teeth were found to be attacked by tooth decay. Typical extensive destruction of the teeth among the modernized Tahitians is shown in Figure 34. Okay, so then the Cook Islands were under British control, delightful climate. So, according to legend, the Maori had, or Maori, however you want to say it, had migrated there from the Cook Islands to New Zealand. In addition to being similar in physical development and appearance, their languages are sufficiently similar so they can understand each other. Interesting little observation there. It's a matter of great importance that the inhabitants of these South Sea islands were skillful navigators and boat builders. It was a common occurrence for the expeditions, both peaceful and aggressive, to make journeys to 1,000 miles in craft propelled by manpower and wind, and carrying in addition an adequate supply of water and food for their journey. A large number were found in the Rarotonga, living almost entirely on native foods. And only 0.3% of the teeth of these individuals have been attacked by dental caries. All right, that's as opposed to And this other island, 31.9% of the people's teeth who were on the import foods. 31.9% versus 0.3%. Right? And these people trying to convince us to go on this slave austerity diet, these people trying to convince us have to resort to cherry-picking data that makes it seem like maybe you might see a rise of 0.4% in populations who eat processed meats as opposed to people who don't. Processed meats, too. Okay? We're looking at thousands of fold increase in dental caries and the destruction of people's immune system. It's ridiculous. All right. So this same island where the natives were living on trade foods. So the natives that they found not on trade foods, 0.3% of these individuals with dental caries. 29.5% attacked by dental caries among the individuals on the same island who were eating the imported foods. So this is a picture on the right-hand side. Now on the top are two examples of fine faces and teeth. These are guys who are eating the native foods, eating the seafoods, perfectly formed dental arches and teeth. And below left, full-blood Polynesian child with a dental arch so small the permanent laterals are developing inside the arch. His parents used imported foods. At the right, mixed blood of white and Polynesian, with normal spacing and temporary teeth before the permanent set appears. Parents used native foods. So this is not a racial thing. This is not like, oh, the race mixing, which is what a lot of people were saying before. He's showing here a kid was mixed race of white parents and Polynesian parents with perfectly fine teeth because he's being fed the native foods. All right, so let's go. So he went through a bunch of different islands, essentially found the same thing. The Samoan Islands. It's another picture. The faces and dental arches of two Samoan primitives and the two modernized below. Face bones underdeveloped, causing marked constriction of the arches with crowding of the teeth. And remember, this is also associated with a narrowing of the birth canal, with more difficulty in birth. So he went to the Hawaiian Islands. Quite unlike any of the other Pacific Island groups previously discussed, sugar and pineapple plantations cover vast areas and together constitute by far the most important industries of these islands. In many districts, the population is almost entirely foreign and of various blends: Filipino, Japanese, Hawaiians, many Americans and Europeans. Different groups brought their own customs. Difficult to find large groups of pure-blooded Hawaiians, either living almost entirely on native foods or only on modern foods, right? There's a very big mix of the population. So they would use, all natives using the underground oven of hot stones for cooking. They would cook this root called taro. So a lot of these populations, obviously, they're using certain plant foods that are seasonal, right? But then their main principal source of nutrition was seafoods. But then they started giving them the white flour. And you see their faces degenerating. Lots of gingivitis and infections. But where they're eating primarily their food that they grew up eating, the native foods, which were seafoods, foods from the ocean, fish, animal fats, with their seasonal fruits that are available there. No degeneration, and their immune systems are solid. So this is really similar to what we saw in the Melanesians, African tribes as well. Many of the island groups recognize that their races are doomed, since they're melting away with degenerative diseases, chiefly tuberculosis. Their one overwhelming desire is that their race shall not die out. They know that something serious has happened since they have been touched by civilization. Surely our civilization is on trial both at home and abroad. The nutrition of the primitive Polynesians is continually reinforced with animal life from the sea and includes both soft and hard shell forms, lots of shellfish and fish. The incidence of tooth decay varied from 0.6% for the most isolated groups to 33.4%. And that's of teeth, not people. 4% of teeth being affected by dental caries. Imagine if a third of your teeth were full of dental caries. Pretty interesting. So, those individuals living on the native environment on their native foods have universally normal facial and dental arch form, reproducing the characteristics of the race. Those living on the normal environment, except for using imported foods of white flour, sugar products, syrup, polished rice, and the like, have in the succeeding generations marked changes in facial and dental arch forms. Now, pretty interesting stuff, guys. So yeah, that's from nutrition and physical degeneration. Notice that every single one of these island populations, even where they have abundant fruit, even where they have certain tubers, which they implement, every one of these populations is still using animal foods as a primary source of nutrition. Right? They're still using abundant seafoods, but then as soon as they give up these foods, their health degenerates. Their jaws get more narrow. And something else that Weston Price noticed is that successive children, right? So like the later born children, the second, third, fourth, fifth child, would have much more degeneration than the firstborn child, right? Because the mother's getting more and more depleted of these foods, more and more depleted of these fat-soluble vitamins, namely, that are coming from these foods. So that's why every single race in the world has used foods like liver, like heart, right? You see in the Nordic populations using a lot of cod livers, fermenting cod livers. You see the Inuit using blubber from whales and seals. You see the North American Indians using loads of bone marrow, loads of animal fat, and the organs of the animals, especially the organs of the animals. So that's why we include a whole section on organ meats in the Ketogenic Edge cookbook. So we got the pemmican with liver and heart right there, which that's a really good way of introducing to organ meats. Just simply drying liver or heart. You can make like liver chips or heart chips. You can grind it up. You get your liver, your heart ground by your butcher, with ground beef even, and you can salt it and dry it in a dehydrator, and you can make these little crunchy chips of like raw liver and heart. Our kids love these. So we got a recipe for like, the spicy liver chips, or not spicy liver chips, but crunchy liver chips. Here's for the vegan viewers. My favorite picture in the book. But there's a whole section on organ meats, how to prepare liver, how to prepare heart, the Ketogenic Edge cookbook. You can find this. We finally got it in print. Check it out at primaledgehealth.com. There's a link below in the description. But that's why we have a whole section on organ meats. That's why we're always talking about if you're doing a carnivore-style diet, please don't just eat muscle meat. Just eating muscle meat is not something that any culture in the history of humanity has promoted. Now, obviously, it's going to work way better than a vegan diet for people, right? A lot of people coming off of a vegan diet. A lot of people are trying to figure out how to heal their gut. It's been massively affected by all the glyphosate-drenched foods, all the lectins, all the histamines. If they're sensitive to these histamines, these salicylates, these oxalates, their gut's going to be torn up. So eating just muscle meat is going to go a long way for a lot of people, and it's going to be really helpful for a lot of people. However, I don't recommend doing just muscle meat long term. Right? You need a variety of foods. This is why every single culture has prized organs. So starting out with foods like liver, heart, really, really good. One of the best ways to go about like first starting out organ meats is to mix up heart with ground beef and just make some straight up ground beef and beef heart meatballs. Right? That's kind of how we started. Well, we started doing raw liver at first, but we were a little bit crazy. But then we started playing around with, meatballs and stuff like that. You got to bridge it for some people, right? So meatballs can be a great way with ground heart. You can even add a little bit of liver in there. You could add like 50% heart, or like 20% heart, 20% liver, 60% ground beef. Does that equal 100? My former vegan brain just doesn't know. But also, just drying stuff, like the liver chips in here. The crunchy liver chips, that's a good one. Our kids love those. They beg for them. So check out the Ketogenic Edge Cookbook. This is in print on our website. We're going to talk to Frank Tufano about some of this stuff too. I know Frank likes to represent the liver, likes to represent the organ meats. I've seen a few of his videos. So many I've had at least 10 people tell me, you got to get Frank Tufano on. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't just the same person 10 times. I think we got some Frank Tufano love out there. Frank Tufano, highly recommended to come on here. So that's going to be cool. But this is what we're seeing, guys. These foods of commerce, the seeds of destruction, are creating rampant health decline in our populations. Now, but then you get these people recommending a vegan diet, like it's somehow enlightening, right? It's getting tied in with being spiritual. Do your Kundalini yoga. And you just go, for the animals, for the animals, in my Kundalini yoga outfit, my crotchless Kundalini yoga pants. All right, so I got a few minutes. I'm going to call Frank in about 10 minutes. Let's see here. Let me pull up this video here. I got some videos pulled up. You know, YouTube just gives me the greatest suggested videos. It's always suggesting me Nature Boy videos now. Peace, reflections. Everybody's favorite fruitarian cult, right? We all know that veganism, the vegan religion, makes so many metaphysical claims, yet claims to be based in reality, which they say it's physical reality, right? I'm not saying there is no metaphysics. It's just hilarious when these vegans are constantly making metaphysical arguments, but saying that their diet's not a religion. Let's learn about how to create healthy gut with a vegan diet.
Hey guys, today I'm going to answer a commonly asked question, and that is, and I'm sure you see this in the comments below, and maybe you're one of them, is how come when you eat plants you get gas and have digestive problems? It shows the sad state of affairs that the modern world is in. Because in nature, you are supposed to go into the wild, pick plants off the bushes and eat them and be fine. That's the way you're designed, but it tells me where people are.
Okay. So, within a few minutes, we get this guy. This guy talking about how we're supposed to just go out into nature and just pick plants. If I go out into the woods here and I just start picking plants off the bush, dude. You just pick the plants off the bush, dude. If I did that, I would die for most of the plants here. Freaking ridiculous. All right, someone's asking about Osho. No Oshoites here. We don't promote degeneracy. The Osho cult, who also promoted vegetarianism and sterilization of his stupid-ass minions. More sex, drugs, rock and roll nonsense. We don't promote Osho here. Don't you be promoting no Oshoism. You go over to Elliot Hulse's channel if you want, if you want prostate stimulation for spirituality shit.
It tells me what they eat. There's two main reasons why people have the problem. First, your food goes into your stomach, which is a bunch of acid that breaks down your food so your body can more easily absorb the nutrients and digest it and pass it on to the intestinal tract. The problem is when you eat bread and things like that, bread is a sponge. It soaks up stomach acid. So now your digestion isn't working right, your nutrients aren't being absorbed right, and when you eat bread, pasta, wheat, and sugar, and dairy, which is sugar and fat, you're basically knocking out a lot of the stomach acid power in you. So that's step one, is the stomach. The stomach is the acid is supposed to break down your food to some degree. Now, it can't really break down cellulose, and there's a reason for that. Cellulose, it's raw plant fiber. That's not for you. That's for the next step in the intestines. That raw plant fiber is the food source, not for you, but for your gut flora. Their main food supply is raw plant fiber. That's what they eat. That's what makes them strong.
So, if you're not eating the raw plant fiber, do we need these gut flora? All right, do we need it? Dude, what's up with this guy's face, though, too? I don't know if I could watch much more of this video. This guy looks like he's had a lot. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not an expert. I'm no expert. But is it just me, or is this guy had some work done on his face? He's kind of got this. He's kind of got a look like this lady too. There's another suggested video. Is it just me, or is plastic surgery vegan? Is this like a thing?
Today is the day.
So this is the lady. Remember last week?
Day that you are.
Who's the daddy? Guess who's the daddy? We watched this with Jay Dyer. Let's see. So the Ken doll guy, plastic face McKendall, says that we're meant to just go out in the woods and pick leaves off of trees and eat them. Most of the plants that we're able to digest and eat have been heavily selectively bred to allow us to digest them, to allow them to even be semi-palatable for human beings. There are very few wild plants in any situation, in any place, that are edible for human beings. And those wild fruits and plants get eaten up by birds, insects, and other primates far prior to human beings being allowed to get to them. So if you look at how people who are living in the Amazon actually eat, they're eating fish, they're eating wild food, they're eating insects even, preferably to plants. They use plants very selectively. So, I mean, again, just more total disconnect. We're meant to, in nature, go out and pick plant foods. I mean, don't appeal to nature when your face looks like it's had $100,000 of freaking plastic put into it. Come on. Let's check out. So this lady was the Who's the Daddy lady. She feeds her kids like a vegan diet. She's like a vegan YouTuber, I guess. TerraFam. Hashtag TerraFam. Meet Dad. Q&A.
To get to meet Dad, guys. I honestly don't even know how this dad situation got to be so big. But anyway, today all of your curiosities will be satisfied. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Dad number 3.
Hi guys.
3.
Hi guys.
There was a big toss-up between 3 and 5.
What? There was a big toss-up between 3 and 5. When I was trying to calculate how much money I would get from the government, I decided that daddy number 3 will give us more money because he's on disability, and we can use that disability money to buy more vegan foods and plastic surgery.
Any of you thought it was 5, I think because Jean's speech was so convincing. She did actually say after that she felt really guilty because she had lied to you guys. But yeah, it was all fun and games. And yeah, it's Dad number 3. He's here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how terrified are you?
9 out of 10. I'm absolutely terrified. I feel so uncomfortable right now. It's unreal.
Dad's sweating,
I'm
twiddling
sweating,
his
I've got a dry
thumbs.
mouth, I'm so uncomfortable.
Heart pounding.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Dad number 3. Wow, well, who's going to be dad number 4? This is so sad, man. This is so sad. I don't really know where they're going with this. But it's just, I've watched little clips of this lady's videos. Actually, I've seen as much as you guys have watched with me. Daddy number 3, though. All right, so here, this is the result of this moral relativist, nihilist, nonsense, flippant lifestyle that we've been given, guys. You look at any of these native cultures, and they all have social cohesion. They all have meaning. They all have common metaphysical beliefs. But the religion that we've been given now, this materialism, right? Naive materialism, naive empiricism, is all based on nonsense. And this stuff is pushed on us through media. It's pushed on us through NGOs. And we're told that having babies is unsustainable and bad. Having families is bad. The family unit must be eroded. Right? Kissinger, Rockefeller Population Council, these guys in this book Ecoscience. Just a short little 1,000-page book. Ecoscience. You've got John P. Holdren. He was the White House science czar under President Obama. And then Paul Ehrlich, who was basically the Chicken Little of the 70s, telling everybody, he was this Malthusian, telling everybody the resources are going to run out. We're not going to be able to feed the population. So this Paul Ehrlich guy told everybody we've got doom and gloom coming. 5 years, in 1980, he made all these ridiculous predictions. By 1985, we're going to have a total collapse of the food supply because we won't be able to feed all the population. We have such an incredible surplus of food, it's ridiculous. More food in the United States gets thrown away than it gets consumed. So he talks about people should long ago have been exploring, developing, and discussing all possible means of population control. But they did not, and the time has nearly run out. This is in the 70s. The population's way higher now, with way more surplus of food. They're talking about specific populations, the populations in areas where resources are, that the NGOs and the big family foundations that fund these groups and that fund these think tanks want to take these resources. They want to take these minerals. They want to take their export foods and trade them in return for the grains, which they've used in the United States, and they use policies in the United States to destroy these native populations that are growing. Well, not even native, right? But the rural populations that are actually involved in animal husbandry has been destroyed. So he says, policies that may seem totally unacceptable today to the majority of people at large or to their national leaders may be seen as very much the lesser of evils in only a few years. Talks about having a new international commons. The new international commons, which we're going to see in the next 10 years, the internet being used as the new international commons, which you're already seeing, the regulation of the internet, the silencing of voices, the deplatforming of people for simply saying things that are not approved. Talks about many less developed countries could also serve as guarantors of cultural diversity, areas specifically reserved to permit peoples to maintain their traditional ways of life. We might let some of these people maintain their traditional ways of life. These are sick people telling you this. So-called social scientists, pseudoscientists like Paul Ehrlich. Just insane talk. But this is policy, you guys. There's another chapter about toward a planetary regime using the UN Environment Program to, so these same groups, the UN, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, are telling us that we need to depopulate the world. Then they're also somehow telling us that we need to eat a vegan diet to be healthy. So the number one goal is depopulation and sterilization. He's got an entire... I've got it marked here somewhere. Some nice talk about forced sterilization. Possibility for the future. Progestins. Morning after pill. Prostaglandins. Hormone-like substances related to fatty acids found in many mammalian tissues, sparked hope that a new abortifacient agent might be developed. So it's just like we need new ways to induce abortions. Immunizing men against their own sperm would theoretically be a way to halt sperm production. However, this possibility will require many years to develop, if it is even feasible. Another idea is to give men a hormone implant that would suppress sperm production over a period of time. And he also talks about forcefully sterilizing people, about putting sterilants in the water supply, and only allowing certain people to breathe through these, But how interesting. He talks about having men sterilized against their own sperm. But then, in a later chapter, in chapter 12 here, in Seeds of Destruction, F. William Engdahl gets into something that's really, really important bit of history. I don't know what page it's on. 2001, it was announced that this company out of San Diego, Epicite developed a spermicidal corn that would produce antibodies to sperm. And they announced this in 2001 as if it was this great, beautiful thing that could help solve the overpopulation problem. What have happened to the sperm rate since the 70s? Have you seen the sperm count since the 70s has decreased? What was it, like 60 or 70%? Crazy, right? Now, you had spermicidal corn developed by Epicite. This company was bought out. Let me find it. The company was bought out. Where'd it go? The ultimate GMO crop, contraceptive corn. They had taken antibodies from women with a rare condition known for immune infertility, isolated the genes that regulated the manufacture of those infertility antibodies, and using genetic engineering techniques, had inserted the genes into ordinary corn seeds used to produce corn plants. We have a hothouse filled with corn plants that make anti-sperm antibodies, boasted Epicite president Mitch Hine. So then Epicite was, let's see, in 2002, CBS News reported that the United States Department of Agriculture did field trials that included Epicite's spermicidal corn technology. What was not revealed was that the USDA was also providing the field trial results to scientists at the U.S. Department of Defense. Through one of their numerous biological research laboratories, such as the Edgewood Chemical and Biological Center in Maryland. Well, that just sounds super enlightening. That sounds really good. GMO corn, spermicidal GMO corn. And you got in the 70s a policy paper written by Paul Ehrlich and a White House science czar that was White House science czar under Obama, not in the 70s, right? So this is 2008. He was White House science czar. Wrote a book talking about we should forcefully sterilize women. We should put sterilants in the water supply. And then in 2001, you had spermicidal corn. But then the spermicidal corn kind of disappeared. No one really heard about it again. The company got bought out by a bigger company, which I'm sure eventually was bought out by Monsanto or Cargill. And no hay más. Interesting stuff. So there we go, guys. This so-called grassroots movement, grassroots veganism, not so grassroots. Not really as grassroots as it seems. You know, lots of dehumanizing propaganda, making you believe that you're just a beast. You're just an animal. It's part of the cultural spirit of the age, right? The cultural zeitgeist, which just means spirit of the age. Now, every single one of these cultures that lived without this degeneration, that lived without this, you know, the hypersexualization of children, the forced sterilization of women, the promotion of sterilization as a practice in the vegan movement, very popular. You know, you've got so many of these aspects of these movements tying in with just this like death cult nonsense, right? This corporate culture of death. Look at this vegans go all the way. This girl's what, like 15? Who is this girl? Samia? I don't know who Samia is. Vegans go all the way. She's got her legs open with her guitar, and vegans go all the way. Come on. This is the propaganda we're given. These plant-based diets have never been used by any healthy culture in the history of man. Every single culture has used foods from animals, fish, seafood, fats, organs, organ meats. All right? There we go. Frank's ready. So we got another guy who's been talking about carnivorous style eating. The one, the only. Frank Tufano, ready to jump on. I got Frank here. I'm going to call him up on Skype. And what do you think? You guys ready for some Frank Tufano talk? We'll hear about Frank Tufano's dietary philosophy. I want to hear about where he's coming from. Let's see what's up with Frank. I know that he is another one of the very few people out there talking about organs, talking about using liver, heart, kidney. So let's see what's up. I'll call Frank. You guys got to tell me if the audio works well. Uh-oh. No, I can't hear you. Hold on.
Why isn't my audio working?
Now I got you. There we go. Can you hear me, Frank?
What's going on, man? Give me a second. I can't hear you.
No worries, man. It might be my problem. Let me just make sure. All right, my mic is working, and I think it's feeding through to Skype. You could just try without headphones, maybe. We got Frank here. So Frank's got a YouTube channel. Frank Tufano is his YouTube channel. I know he's on Instagram as well. I'll have to put a link to his YouTube down below. Let's see. Frank will call me back now. Try reconnecting.
Okay, sorry about that.
Can you hear me now, man?
Yeah, I had the wrong audio input.
Nice. Mr. Frank Tufano. Wait, where's your video? You throw your video on?
Um,
All right, we'll get it. We'll get it. Oops. I accidentally declined his call. Why do I have two me's up on the screen? What's up, dude?
all right, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm well. Let's see. Let me make. I got split screen for some reason. Let me turn this split screen off and get it. Window. No. Nice to meet you, man. I've been digging some of your videos on YouTube. I'm just I'm trying to adjust the video here to make sure that you don't have to see two of me up on the screen.
Okay, no, that's no problem. I watched the first hour or so of your live stream,
Oh, thanks, man.
and yeah, and I was actually reading that. I read that chapter earlier. It's really pretty interesting parallel there between the people who literally were at like the peak of physical health, and then they all just died of tuberculosis one generation later.
Yeah. And what was it, like a 200,000 population down to 10,000, or was it 100? I mean, just insane. Send them off to war.
What I was thinking of was there was this guy on the Joe Rogan podcast. I think his name was like God Sad or something,
Okay.
and he was talking about this study on baboons, and all the alpha male baboons, they procured this, like, there was this new resort out there, and they procured this like garbage dump, and they were eating, the alpha males were eating all this garbage, and only the alpha males had it because they like pushed all the other baboons out and stuff. So only the alpha males in this group of baboons was eating this garbage, and they all died from tuberculosis within like a generation. And then that whole society changed because all the alpha males were dead. They were much more passive. But it's crazy to think that without modern medicine, intervention, all those things, vaccines, humans would literally just die out from 1 or 2 generations of this diet. It's pretty crazy to think that.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you look at kind of the historical and anthropological context of like the introduction of these freaking foods into cultures. It just seems to destroy them so rapidly, And then even animals, like you probably saw. There's that part about pigs in Weston Price. He's like deprives the mother pig of vitamin A, and the
Yeah, and they were born without eyes.
They're
Yeah,
eyeless, brain
Yeah,
deformed pigs, dude.
I remember that.
Tumors and shit. It's freaking crazy.
There's the Pottinger cat study where the cats went sterile from eating cooked meat. I think there's that one too. There's a bunch of stuff going on over there.
Yeah. So all right. So cooked meat. I want to get into a lot of like. I know that you've got a very interesting dietary philosophy. I want to kind of start from the beginning. How did you? What year were you born?
Yeah, I took some notes here just so I could get this chronologically correct. So I was actually born in '92, turning 26 this year.
Nice.
I mean, do you want me to go over like my personal life a little bit, or just like the dietary history?
Do you have any past life memories, Frank? No.
Well,
I'm just kidding. Like, we don't need to get personal.
it's funny.
However you want.
I didn't tell anyone on my channel, and I haven't told people this, but I'm actually a triplet. I have a brother and a sister.
What?
And yeah, my brother is out in California. He works for aerospace, got a master's in physics, worked very hard to be where he is. And my sister is unfortunately on the other end of the spectrum. She's actually mentally disabled, and she has intellectual and developmental disability. And part of the reason I started this diet and everything I kind of do in my mission of like nutrient density is because I believe that a lot of these mentally disabled kids and a lot of modern problems are caused by nutrient deficiencies. So when I'm directly impacted as like this with my sister, and I see this every day and I work with it every day, and I think how crazy it is that because of modern lifestyle and diet that some poor girl has to spend her whole life in this state. To me, it seemed crazy and absurd. But at least from my point of view, it's drastically different than that excuse that people generally give. That's, oh, it's just genetics. It's just by chance. It's not genetics. When I used to bartend at a country club, and this guy raging alcoholic, drank a bottle of scotch every day, had like literally like 5 kids that all had Down syndrome. And so,
People would say that's genetic.
yeah,
Alcoholism is genetic,
yeah,
they claim.
yeah. But but anyway, so didn't really was really into bodybuilding when I was in high school. That was kind of my first introduction to nutrition, and I didn't really have a lot of guidance growing up. I literally played. I remember playing World of Warcraft all day, League of Legends all day up until I was literally like 20. And outside of that, I did diet and go to the gym every day for 2 hours. So I was dieting, I was working out, and playing video games. That's pretty much what I did. But that introduction to bodybuilding and stuff from when I was like 15 to 21, I actually wrote down what I did. So started bodybuilding when I was about 15 years old. I was like dirty bulking, eating McDonald's, like those classic like peanut butter oat whey protein shakes, just like disgusting stuff. Had terrible acne, very inflammatory foods. Eventually I cleaned it up. I moved to like rice, chicken and rice, broccoli, classic bodybuilder, like conventional wisdom diet. And then over the course of a few years after cleaning it up, that's what most people would consider a healthy diet nowadays. Chicken, rice, vegetables, stuff like that.
Lean protein, carbs.
Yeah, lean protein. Yeah, it drives me crazy.
How you like that word lean? I saw the trigger. Lean protein.
Dude, the fact that people can take a piece of an animal and not eat the rest of it just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, that devolved into a paleo diet. So what happened was I went from eating and I had pictures on my old phone of my meal. It was crazy. I literally ate like half of a chicken with sweet potatoes, brown rice. I had like spinach, green beans, and broccoli in every meal. I had almonds, walnuts, fruits, vegetables. I had every color. People would say, oh, that's the healthiest diet you could possibly be following. And I was eating literally at one point like 3, 4, 5 pounds of brown rice and sweet potatoes a day.
Wow.
And I still had like no energy.
Did you fart like crazy? How are those farts?
I didn't actually have too much gas, but I would literally, my bowel movements were like it was just pretty much like so large of these carbohydrates. And
you're like shitting like the thing from freaking, what was it? Not the Avengers. The, that character? The thing with like the knobby, like.
Yeah. This is that Marvel stuff. So
yeah, some stupid shit. Doesn't matter.
But I was remembering before I did that diet, like I would come home every day from high school and eat a big bowl of pasta and literally just pass out for an hour or two. I literally had to go to bed. That's another thing I remember about that. But what happened was I stopped bodybuilding in 2013 because I hated spending 2 hours a day in the gym. I knew I didn't have the frame for it, and I didn't want to do performance-enhancing drugs. I didn't want to take steroids. I didn't want to do anything. Although I did take creatine in the past, and I think that's very effective. I just wanted to be natural and healthy. That's what I wanted to do. So I literally quit weightlifting for 2 years. I started like Googling what's the healthiest diet.
Was there like something that made you? I mean, was this around the time when your sister was having a lot of problems? I mean, what made you want to get healthy?
What it was when I was spending 2 hours a day in the gym, eating this diet that I thought was healthy, and I was so tired and I had no energy, and I just had I just wasn't healthy. I didn't feel good, although I was muscular. That's pretty much what it was. So I was just thinking, what is the healthiest diet? And then on Google, I came across this guy. I don't know if you're familiar with Paul Chek.
Yeah.
He has a YouTube channel, and he introduced me through his book to Weston A. Price.
Yeah.
And this was back in like 2012, 2013.
What's his book? How to Eat, Move, and Be...
How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, yeah. I have the book, but I lost it. I don't know where I put it.
We got a copy of his book. He's got the picture of the poops playing basketball. I always remember that picture.
Oh, I don't remember half the book, to be honest, but all I know is that it introduced me to nutrition and physical degeneration, and it introduced me to Nora Gagaudis' book, Primal Body, Primal Mind. And after reading those two books, I kind of put together in my head that a diet high in these animal foods was the healthiest, that there's an importance in nutrient density of these foods. And I kind of paralleled that with, well, if I don't have energy on carbohydrates, why not try keto? So what I essentially did was back in like 2012, 2013, I was inadvertently following zero carb keto without really knowing what it was. And I didn't know about zero carb until like 2016. Yeah. I literally followed this diet for about 3 years.
So
And
this was non-internet. You discovered a diet without the internet. That's pretty cool.
yeah, no, it's
Pre-YouTube.
although I originally found out about Paul Chek on YouTube, the rest of the dietary exploration was through books. Like it wasn't online, it wasn't videos, it wasn't forums at all. So in the year that so now it's about 2013, 2015, not 2015, 2013-ish, late 2012. I was buying a lot of meat from U.S. Wellness Meats. I was really into like fermented cod liver oil, and I was not really eating enough fat, and I still didn't have energy on this diet. It literally took me like a year to become fat adapted because I was eating too much lean protein.
Yeah.
It literally took me a year before I started eating more fat. So
You were already
2000
pretty lean. Like, did you grow up lean or?
Oh, so when I was bodybuilding in 2011, I stopped at about 190 pounds.
What?
When I cleaned up and that was without working out my legs at 5'8". So if I worked out my legs, I would have been like 210.
Damn, so you were massive.
I was big. Yeah, my arms were like 17 and a half, 18 inches at like 5'7". I looked ridiculous. I didn't even take any pictures. Like the only pictures I have were like back in 2015 when I did a physique competition, but that was already 2 years after I stopped lifting weights. So
Okay, yeah.
back in 2000, so I was at like 190, and then when I cleaned up my bodybuilding diet, I went down to 170, and then when I stopped lifting weights and went on this almost rabbit starvation diet without enough fat, I went down to like 130 pounds. I was like emaciated almost because I wasn't eating enough and
Feel like shit?
enough fat. Yeah, it was even worse than before. And when I started eating enough fat and I started lifting weights again and working out a little bit, this was like 2014, 2015, I was experimenting with some like raw butter, raw dairy, buying like raw beef suet online. I was going to local butchers, getting more fat. That's where I started feeling better, becoming more fat adapted. And that was actually after about a year of that, in early 2015, I decided I wanted to do a physique competition, and that was also when I started getting cravings for raw meat. So I don't know I think the first time I tried undercooked meat was when I actually got home one night from work and I was tired and I was just too lazy to put this meat back on the grill after I undercooked it. So I just ate it. And from that point on, I liked the texture more. So I just seared it on the outside and had the inside raw.
Yeah.
And at some point in early 2015, I actually started craving raw meat. And ever since then, I've kind of like gradually deviated between craving raw meat and craving cooked meat. But when I was actually lifting weights for that physique competition, and if you guys want, I have like 2 pictures from it. It was the 2015 NPC Mid-Atlantic Natural Classic. That was so bad, man. I spent like 2 hours driving out there. Then I had to do this competition. Then I had to wait all there all day until the night show.
What do you think about fitness competitions now?
Physique competitions, they're all. I mean, the rampant drug use is something we could talk about.
Yeah.
But I did a natural show, and it just didn't seem healthy to me.
What do you think about the vibe? To me, it always seems so weird. It's like the judges
really
table. It's always like these weird pedo-looking dudes, and like you're like a high school gymnasium usually, right?
Yeah.
And you just wait in line. You walk up there, you pose real quick, and you get off. It just seems so strange. It seems like a sad environment, you know.
And I see these people. And I did that because I just wanted to try it. And then I realized, wow, I'm like 145 pounds on stage, and these guys are like, they're twice as wide as me, even just as natural. So I realized I didn't have the frame for it. And why did I bring that up? Oh, no, because during the prep for that show, this was literally my prep for the whole show. I was eating as much raw meat and clarified butter in the morning as I could, and then at night. And then I would have like a little bit of liver here and there. And then my contest prep for the show, I literally didn't eat for a week, and then I just did the show. I literally like fasted for a week. I didn't do any bullshit diet. I didn't restrict my calories. I didn't do cardio.
Fasted for a week.
I just fasted for a week, and I was like the leanest guy on stage. I just didn't
but like
eat a
all
thing.
depleted, right? Just like about to pass.
Oh yeah,
out.
no, I was so depleted. I didn't. If I like drank a bottle of honey before I went on stage, I might have done better. But what happened was in the morning in the prejudging, I was really flat. I didn't eat anything. I made a mistake. But then before the night show, I had some cooked brain. I had some other meat. I had some organs. I ate. I think I had like the part meat of a goat head or something. And at the night show, I was a bit fuller and I looked better. So that definitely just nice to see different perspective for that. That was a little something I did. And then been following raw on and off, and then between seared on the outside. So I've pretty much always been raw, just cooking meat on the outside sometimes. And then 2016, I actually had jaw surgery to fix my bite. I got some videos on my YouTube about that. And for 10 weeks, I actually followed a vegetarian diet. I only ate eggs, cheese, and butter because I could only eat soft foods. Yeah. So what was really interesting about that is, those foods didn't satiate me. So I could literally eat, although I started eating like 6 to 12 eggs a day with like a stick of butter and cheese. At one point, I was eating like 24 eggs a day, and I was still hungry.
Raw eggs?
No, that was actually cooked with a lot of butter and cheese.
Because raw eggs, they don't satiate me at all. Like I like them lightly cooked, with the yolk kind of raw. But the raw eggs, it's like I could kill 12 raw eggs and feel like I just had a cup of water.
Yeah, I'm the same way. But what was really interesting about that vegetarian diet was when I went back to eat steak, I actually didn't like the steak. So apparently 10 weeks was long enough for my gut bacteria to adjust to this new diet and not really like anything else. But ever since that, jaw surgery was end of 2016, that was over. And ever since then, I've been kind of alternating between like a couple weeks, I'll eat completely raw, then I'll go back to searing meat on the outside. More recently, earlier this year, 2018, I did follow just completely raw for a while. Even started messing around with some honey. And then more recently, the past few months, I have been searing on the outside and having some more cooked. But the one glaring thing that I've changed in my diet over the past year is I did remove salt. That's pretty much my whole dietary history. There were a couple interesting notes that I did want to touch on.
So why did you remove salt this year?
I heard a lot about it, and I was never able to do it because I was always craving it, and I always enjoyed meat with the salt on it more. And I said, you know what? Let's just buckle down and try without salt. And eventually, I was fine. I felt good. I didn't want the salt anymore. My water intake, and I was having problems with my water intake. I was so thirsty after eating salt, even though I was craving it. So at one point, I stopped craving salt, and at this point, I don't even really like it when I put salt on my food. So something happened in that period of eating a lot of raw, removing salt, that my body eventually adjusted to a salt-free diet. Although I'm sure if you put a salted steak in front of me, I might still enjoy it. To me, it does. I really taste the salt, and it does taste too salty as opposed to enjoyable.
Yeah. That's interesting. But you eat a lot of raw meat, though. So it seems like people who eat a lot of raw meat do start craving salt less. People who eat mostly raw meat.
For me,
not across the board, but the people that I hear say that they eat less salt are usually eating more raw meat. I guess that's a better way of putting it.
I think it could also have a lot to do with electrolyte depletion and thirst and hydration, because cooked meat requires more fluids to digest. That's another theory. Definitely has to do with...
Why might cooked meat require more fluid to digest, theoretically?
It's pretty simple. When you cook meat, it loses water content.
But right. But there's still the juices kind of collect at the bottom there. A lot of it does evaporate off. You're right.
I haven't looked into this enough to really talk on it, but I can say for certain that eating cooked food produces more waste, it digests quicker, and it requires more water to digest.
Okay.
So those factors are definitely worth considering when, when the reason I started eating more cooked is because I started working out heavier, and my body started craving cooked food. So I thought that may be like, okay, cooked food digests quicker. It's a way to get more calories in, as opposed to eating a raw primal diet. Although you can get a lot of calories in on a raw primal diet if you're eating foods like dairy and butter and
so
honey.
Hard to get a lot of raw meat in. Yeah, right, man.
If you're just eating raw meat and pure beef fat, it's honestly, I think it's impossible for someone like me who has an extra 20-30 pounds of muscle to have enough calories to sustain that. If I lost the muscle and was like a natural indigenous body weight at at 5'8", maybe like 125, 130 pounds, my daily caloric expenditure would probably be low enough that I could do that. So I'm assuming in ideal circumstances, in natural state, you could follow raw, but in any example of indigenous diets and any of these healthy groups of people, they don't eat only animal foods, let alone only raw. So
Yeah.
cooking food and eating plant foods is not necessarily.
There's only like 2 groups in
problem.
all the Weston Price ones that actually ate mostly animal foods, and that was, the North American Indians who were eating like caribou. And you do have the Plains Indians who are living mostly off the buffalo, but they'd still eat some berries and stuff. They wouldn't like not eat plants. But yeah, you're definitely right, man. What do you think about just muscle meat? Like, this is the thing, the carnivore diet, people say. Just eat meat, salt, drink water.
So the only problem, listen, I really love how popular like Michaela Peterson and Sean Baker are, and to me, I get so excited when I see they're helping all these people healing themselves and doing better. But then the problem is, you get all these people against the carnivore diet that are using their perspective that was shown to them to paint against it. So
they're straw manning that. They're straw manning that version of it. Where there's been people like you and I who've been doing something similar to that, but a little bit less simple. I mean, it's like organ meats, butter, like seasonal. I don't know. Like, it's sad to me that gets straw manned.
No, they're critiquing. They're saying, oh, the diet doesn't have XYZ vitamins. They're saying it doesn't have enough blah blah blah. But reality is, if you're doing the diet the way we're doing it, there's nothing you could really argue against. There really isn't.
Yeah.
And all those straw man arguments that they're putting
What about
up,
fiber, man? What do you think about the fiber?
That's a really tough argument to make, though, because we know humans don't digest fiber, and it's not necessary in the human digestive system. So how can you really make an argument past that humans just don't digest it? To me, that's so.
They'll tell you, look, here are these epidemiological studies showing that people who increase their fiber intake by this much, if you eat more fiber, you have a lower risk of heart disease, cancer, this and that. But they're epidemiological studies. They're always pulling this shit out.
The other gripe I have is that what you just brought up is any study, whether it's like I was going to make a video within the next few days on colon cancer or phytonutrients, whatever thing you're arguing for or against in regards to the carnivore diet, it's, as you said, it's epidemiological studies with association. You don't have people, only eating meat. You don't have people that are only drinking turmeric juice. It just doesn't make sense when you look at the data. And at best, we can really argue, well, yeah, we don't really have proof for the carnivore diet besides the paper value and bioavailability of these nutrients. That being said, the only thing you have against it is those epidemiological studies. So, and I think the science argument.
I would say to go on with your point, you don't have proof for any diet because there's never been long-term real human studies where you're isolating specific diets. There's no the vegans. There's no the vegan diet. They'll say, well, obviously a whole food plant-based diet is just so amazing. Like, look at all the studies. But it's all epidemiological shit. And it's like, there's no freaking studies on real people. You're looking at the China study,
That I remember that China study was so big a couple years ago. And it was just, I think the interesting thing about that study is a couple of the provinces in China that they picked, they excluded the ones that were consuming high amounts of animal fat because it went against what they were shooting for. But, I mean, that's the problem with everything, though. Generally speaking, you can't really – I mean, the whole USDA dietary guidelines are based off of that cherry-picked data that what's his name?
Ansel Keys. Asshole Keys.
Ansel Keys. Yeah. That's I don't want to get into that discussion in this video, but the data and cherry picking data. And I did a video. People were laughing to bring out Frankie Fennel in your chat earlier. I did a video.
Who's Frankie Fennel? Is it a character?
Yeah, a character. I did like a lisp and like I was wearing glasses and I was pretending that I was gonna switch to a vegan diet, eating because rabbits eat their own feces. So I made a video saying that vegans, we should eat our own feces and talking about like hard feces, soft feces, with the benefits of eating it. With this
gorillas, dude. Gorillas eat their own shit too.
Hold on, why the hell did I bring that up? Because
we're just talking about vegan science, I guess. The science against carnivore diets.
No, but I brought that up because, oh man, why the hell was I had a point, man. What was it?
Rabbit poop, something like that.
Rabbit poop. I have no idea, man. But these vegans, they eat. All of them do they're eating the same foods pretty much. They need to have certain supplements. They need to have certain whatever it may. Oh no, the reason I brought that up was because the lipid hypothesis, which is what Ansel Keys based his research off of, was based off of the arterial calcification in rabbits when they were fed cholesterol.
Yeah.
That's why I brought that rabbit stuff up.
You fed a carnivorous diet to a straight up herbivore. Or omnivore. I'm sure rabbits eat bugs too.
That. I had a couple videos that I think I got rid of that were talking about that too. But
why do you get rid of videos often?
No, what happened was I was upset that people stole my information. And there was one article on this very popular website where he stole my information. I made like a video making several points on why conventional agriculture is not necessarily better for the environment, talking about like the degradation of the soil, how animals died in harvesters, how many animals were displaced, like mice and rodents and deer were displaced when these crops were harvested. I made a couple points on
didn't the Keith make
pesticides.
those points back in her book back in the day?
I don't know, but I read this article online that literally the reason I knew they stole it was because the points I made chronologically in that video were in that article And at first I was like, there's no way they stole information from my stupid YouTube video to put in this article on this website. And after I read it over, I was like, they had to have.
That's
and then there's another guy.
That's how the internet
there
runs.
was another guy. There's another guy. I forgot his name. I think it's Headbangers Cooking or something. He stole my meat noodle technique, and since I got rid of the video, I didn't have the first one. But it doesn't. I mean, those are just little small examples, and those are also reasons that I got like a few things up my sleeve I haven't shown like people in regards to recipes and stuff, because like I have some really good ideas that I don't want to share because it's acceptable to those things. Like you said, you make liver chips in your cookbook. I've done recipes like that too, and I think they're delicious. But for me, it just at this point, I don't want to give it away and have someone else make a video and use it. But that's just I didn't really have to bring that up. But that was the reason that I got. I was just a little bit upset that people were stealing my information and using larger platforms to get viewership on it.
I got a question. You mentioned something. I saw your Instagram. I was looking through your Instagram, and you keep putting up pictures to talk about insomnia. What's up with insomnia?
Yeah, man. So I think I haven't honestly. I'm not 100% sure on what it is, but ever since a couple weeks ago, I ate an unusual amount of duck liver over the course of a few days, and probably like 3 or 4 duck livers per day, way too much. And I had a hard time sleeping. And it's like active mind pretty much, like hallucinations almost when I'm trying to sleep. Like my brain just thinks of random stuff. Yeah. Like I was thinking of like video games I used to play when I was younger. I was thinking of just crazy stuff. And I looked it up and I was like, oh, it's possible that I have copper toxicity from eating so much liver. And then I said, okay, let me fast for a couple of days. Let me stop eating liver and let me try to do this and that. And I've had days on and off where I have slept and I have days where I haven't. But ever since I ate all that liver that day, like then I tried only raw dairy, but the dairy made it worse. So I'm fairly certain it has to do with copper toxicity. And
you don't think it could have anything to do with electrolyte imbalance? Because that's all. Usually, when people have sleep problems and their carbs are real low, that's one of the first things I ask about is electrolyte stuff.
I thought it could have been electrolyte imbalance, but I've taken large amounts of every single electrolyte in an attempt to balance it. So I've tried. I tried taking a lot of potassium, which made it worse. I tried taking sodium, which didn't work. I tried magnesium and zinc, put me to sleep. So there's something that leads me to believe that it is copper toxicity. Okay. Because me trying all those other electrolytes, besides magnesium and zinc, did not work. And last night, I had a hard time sleeping, so I took a bunch of zinc again, and I did eventually fall asleep. But for me, it's just,
I've eaten like loads of liver, man. I've eaten liver.
Yeah. That's why I don't think it's the liver, because I've been eating liver for literally years and years and years, and I've never had this problem. So What I think it might be is that I increased my caloric amount through eating cooked foods. So I'm going to go back to eating raw and fasting, and hopefully in a week or two I really have an answer to what it was.
You turn off your Wi-Fi at night?
I thought that was it. I thought that was it at one point, because I don't have a router in my room.
Someone throw up a 5G tower right next to your house?
I thought that could have been it. I really did, because
A lot of that stuff, man. Yeah, the electromagnetic field.
I used to sleep next to a router, and I couldn't sleep for night. I installed a new router in my room, and I couldn't sleep. And I was like, "Is this really it?" And I started Googling, router, room, sleep, and that came up. I was like, this could be it?" And right outside my room is these power lines and stuff, but not like those towers, just like some lines going into my house. So I didn't think that was it. And my computer is like a laptop. It's Wi-Fi. It doesn't have a router in the room. So I didn't think that small amount could be a problem, but I went down to sleep in my living room, and I still had the racing mind.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it was that, but I don't know if like if I move away from the router, is it instantly going to be better? Like, I don't understand. Is that how it's supposed to work? So there are a couple of factors that I thought it could be, being the copper toxicity, the Wi-Fi, and
a lot of people get issues with like smart meters and stuff like that too. Someone mentioned smart meters. That's the same thing as 5G with smart meters. Microwave radiation, which will kind of disrupt the magnetic field around us. That sucks, man. I hate insomnia. I had this time when I ate a bunch of raw heart. For some reason, it made me fart for like a week. And there was nights where I was just like lay down to go to sleep. Like, damn, I got to stand up and burp. I was just like, I was so bloated. I don't know if it was the heart. I don't know what it was, but
this is weird, because I've never had anything like this before.
Yeah.
It's just like crazy racing thoughts, like mine will not fall asleep no matter what.
Maybe it's not even diet related. Maybe it's other shit in your life.
I don't know, because it's weird. I literally feel like I could run through drywall right now. That's how like I feel. Like, it's weird. I feel like I'm out of breath, but I could run like a mile. And I was like, you know what? Let me go to the gym and see how long I could sprint on the treadmill. And I sprinted for like 5 minutes, but then I just still had those racing thoughts. So hopefully I'm going to really try a couple different things. I'm sure I'll figure it out within the next week or two.
Yeah. So you've been doing like raw-ish on and off. You don't really it seems like you go back and forth between preferring eating raw meat, preferring not eating raw meat.
Yeah, but like even when I cook it, it's still raw in the middle. It's just seared on the outside.
Yeah.
So to me, that's weird. But
yeah,
like on and off, like lately I've been craving cooked. So I'll cook some meat, and lately I've been doing eggs. I've been trying to keep the copper low in my diet, but that doesn't seem to be helping. So I don't think that's it.
How do you like to cook your meat?
I get really hot fire with charcoal and wood, and I just sear it quickly on the outside, get it brown for I used to work in New York City steakhouses, so I'm like a bit of a stickler for like how the steak is cooked.
Yeah, so you got your techniques.
Yeah, I'm a little bit particular. Dude, when people post pictures of like gray steaks that they like steamed in a pan, I'm like, come on, dude, what are you doing? It's like shit. It's funny. Like
I just like the juices and the butter in the bottom. Like
but that's delicious. Like it might still taste good. I wish I could eat butter, man. I'm so allergic to dairy. But let me just.
You were doing a bunch of dairy for a while.
Yeah, let me answer what I've been eating recently, and then I'll answer that. So, I like yesterday, for example, I had a combo raw meal and cooked meal. So I had some raw ground beef with some egg yolks in it, and then I had some steak with some cooked eggs, and that was it. But before, normally what I would do is I'd have some brain tissue, I'd have some liver with it, maybe even some high liver. Sometimes I'd have some salmon roe and mainly just increasing my vitamin A, my vitamin K, my EPA, DHA intake. But those foods are very high in copper, and it just seemed to me like anytime I ate a food that was high in copper, I wouldn't sleep. And the problem with animal foods is most of them are. Like, I was eating bone marrow a couple days ago, and I had a feeling it was high in copper, but there was no data on it. Like, it was literally very difficult to find data on copper content of bone marrow. But there is significantly more copper in bone marrow than there is in beef fat or muscle meat. So And that's kind of what I've been doing lately, like raw meat, some raw meat with egg yolks, some like steaks seared on the outside with some cooked eggs. But I think I'm going to ditch the eggs and see if that helps completely. Eggs for me are low level inflammatory reaction in regards to my digestive tract. I don't get any acne or any other problems, but I think I'm better off excluding them from my diet in general. I actually just started putting them back in for the past few weeks because I couldn't eat the bone marrow that I got, and I was having a hard time sourcing beef fat that wasn't frozen. But for me, the frozen versus fresh debate is more that's a little bit wacky, to be honest. I haven't seen any proof for that. But in regards to dairy, I did some pretty solid experimentation in regards to knowing for sure whether or not I'm intolerant. And if I get some like raw goat milk, I could drink like a glass in the morning and a glass at night and not have too much digestive issues, but I will get very hard cystic acne within a day, and that'll just get worse and worse. Very hard, painful lumps on my face. And same thing with raw cow milk. It goes right through me. Like, so the raw goat milk on like a glass or two at a time basis was okay, but I would still get bad acne. The raw cow milk just went right through me. Just terrible lactose intolerance. The raw cream and raw butter made me break out with cystic acne like crazy. And when I had that dairy, I had super awful insomnia, like worse than this. My brain was even more active than this. So although initially when I had that duck liver maybe a month or two ago now, that was the first time I started getting insomnia. When I had this raw dairy, my insomnia got 10 times worse. Like with that liver, I only missed 1 or 2 nights of sleep. But with this dairy, I literally didn't sleep for like 5 days. It was so bad. So whatever was in this dairy, whether it was a high copper content, whether it had to do with the estrogen content of the milk, whatever it was in that dairy was a huge problem in regards to that. So, and not only that, just the low-level inflammatory reactions from the really bad cystic acne to the bowel.
Did you ever have these issues? Like you mentioned, you were eating loads of rice, loads of broccoli, like all that stuff before. Did you ever have like these issues or like, issues with, like manic type states, mental states that would come up with when you were on those types of diets or standard American diet?
The only problems I had on standard American diet were terrible, really like pizza face acne. Yeah. And I guess blood sugar fluctuations in regards to being tired a lot.
Right. You used to crash after the meals, acne.
Yeah, that and just like a lot of very large bowel movements, like not digesting food. That was and then when I took Accutane, all those problems went away. But I've always been lactose intolerant. I've always had all these low-level inflammatory reactions. They were just kind of
but like those pharmaceuticals, those can have definitely have a weird effect on gut microbiome too.
Yeah, ever since I took Accutane, I've always been thirsty, and I've had a lot of problems ever since I took that drug. So I'm sure I damaged my liver to some degree taking that drug, and I'm sure my body's all fucked up from taking that because I literally am thirsty all the time ever since I took that. So
have you ever done like liver support stuff? I mean, even like just like N-acetylcysteine, that's pretty cheap. N-acetylcysteine can be really good for helping the liver kind of open up and let out.
I've never looked into any sort of detox or anything, so I don't even know what that is.
That's just an amino acids. It's a cysteine amino acid, N-acetylcysteine.
I was reading an article about copper toxicity in young women last night, and they prescribed them a drug that binds to heavy metals in the body called like D something, and but that to me that drug was poison too. So there's definitely, for me in my experience, hopefully I can figure it out on my own. If not, I was thinking about going down to Weill Cornell Sleep Center and seeing what they had to say. Because
it sounds like it's too diet related. If you tried all these different things and nothing changes, it sounds like you might be dealing with something else.
I got to try. Yeah, that's a possibility. I got to try sleeping because for me, like when I went to sleep downstairs away from what I thought the Wi-Fi was, I still had the racing thoughts. So I don't really, to me, it's hard to say if it was a Wi-Fi thing.
You tried having honey, some raw honey?
Yeah, I did try that. One night I was going nuts. So I literally had I had a quarter jar of raw honey. I took like a couple tablespoons of potassium and magnesium powder and zinc powder, and I did fall asleep. So I don't know which one of those things worked, but I'm leaning towards the magnesium powder. So whatever the magnesium and the zinc is doing in my body, it's fixing the problem.
100% cacao. You ever try?
I used to make these zero carb cacao, not technically zero carb because it's a plant food, but these like keto cacao macadamia nut bars with not with the cacao but with the cocoa butter.
Okay.
And for me, I never tried cacao because it's super high in phytic acid, but I don't think phytic acid binds to copper, but it might not be a bad idea to try incorporating some of those foods to see if that fixes it. But
yeah, because that's a way of getting the the magnesium in a whole food source, and it's mostly fat. It's like the carbs are kind of fermented out. It does have some people's gut can be sensitive because there's some polyphenols and stuff in it, but yeah, interesting.
I'll give it a shot. I think because some ants got into my magnesium glycinate, I got to buy some more. So I don't want to talk on that too much. I'm sure I'll figure it out and I'll have an answer for you guys in a couple weeks.
So how do you like to cook your meat? I'm gonna close the door while you're explaining.
Yeah, sure. So I always do on the grill usually, because since I can't cook my meat with butter and sometimes I don't have access to another animal fat, I just like I'll get the grill hot, I'll get the flames, like the flames will be going past the grates. I'll put the meat on the grill, sear it for like 30 seconds to a minute each side, just get it nice, crispy, and brown, and that's it.
Nice.
And then the inside's raw, let it get to room temp, just roll with that. That's pretty much it. What
other foods you like to eat? So what other animal-based foods? You mentioned bone marrow, a little bit of brain, a little liver. What else?
So my diet is pretty much completely bone marrow, brain tissue, beef fat, salmon roe, some fatty fish, usually ribeye, sometimes grass-fed ground beef, but lamb. I like lamb a lot, rack of lamb, lamb chops, any part of lamb really, lamb shoulder. But I don't really eat a crazy variety of foods. I do incorporate the pastured eggs from time to time. Duck eggs and turkey eggs are delicious. On and off, I've been kind of trying some raw honey here and there, but the one time my peak physical performance in the past year or so was when I drank some goat milk, and I literally ran a mile like twice as long as I ever had before at a certain pace. So I don't know if it was the carbohydrate content or it was like the low volume of food in my digestive system because I was drinking my calories was allowing me to sleep better. So I decided maybe experiment with a slight carbohydrate intake and seeing how that affected my performance. But with my sleeping problems lately, I haven't really been able to say whether or not the honey makes a difference. Although I definitely have some slight allergic reaction to it, for sure. So I think with the honey and the eggs, I'm definitely better off just it stinks, but I kind of got to stick to just stuff off the animal, so to speak. Fat, organ meats, muscle meats.
It seems like the sleep thing's on your mind like a lot. I'm sorry for bringing it up earlier, but it's like now we keep going back to it. Like it seems like every food is coming back to like how does it affect the sleep issue?
It's weird because I figured I had it down pat, and it sounds crazy, but I just can't think of what it could possibly be, because as crazy as it is to bring up a disease like BSE or Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease, where insomnia is a symptom of that disease, and that prion disease it's literally not possible that I would have that disease. It's literally not possible because all of the brain tissue I've eaten was from young lambs. And even if hypothetically speaking, I did eat this food and it was infected with this prion disease, it's not transmittable from lambs. So I was like, well, it can't be that. It could only possibly be copper toxicity. That's the only real thing I could think of it being. So I think my real solution right now is to literally just fast for a day or two, only eat meat, no eggs, no blah, 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 nothing that I know might be a problem, no liver, and see what happens. If not, then I will go the sleep center route, but I think I just really have to get like a hair mineral analysis done to see what my copper levels are in my hair. Because I've heard that you can't measure it in the blood because although it will be slightly higher in the blood, it's mostly in the tissues of the body. But they can't really cut out a piece of my liver and see how much copper's in my liver. I'm sure it'd be off the goddamn chart though.
You do caffeine?
No, caffeine, never. I don't think I've really ever drank coffee in my life.
Yeah.
Outside of maybe once or twice.
Meth? Methamphetamine? No, just kidding.
No, I used to take when I was bartending 2 years ago. I took Adderall a couple times, but that just made me feel like my heart was going to explode, so I stopped taking that.
Yeah.
But no, never. Don't do any drugs, nothing like that.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah, I don't want to dwell on that too much because I don't have an answer for it. I
know you keep going back to it though. I was asking about how you like to cook your meat.
That's it. That's it. I swear that's it.
You're like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it, and then I ask you another question, and you bring the question right back. It's all good, dude. No, it's cool. It's like it's always nice to have people on who are real, who actually talk about like why they do what they do, and it's like this is what's on your freaking mind, and you're a passionate person. You latch on to things like that, and I think a lot of people, that get into really like. I would say the word extreme, but I think a lot of people that start messing with their diet, we end up hyper focusing on diet as the root cause of like everything. Whereas like that's why I was trying to ask other questions, like, you got Wi-Fi, you try to turn off your electricity breaker in your house, like the little things like that can have an effect on sleep as well. But yeah, I mean, you never know what's going on. It could be gut microbiota imbalances or, bacterial infections, viral stuff going on. But, I mean, lack of sleep sucks. It definitely sucks. So I could see why your mind would go back to that. When you're not sleeping well, you feel it. Definitely.
Yeah, I try to be objective and look at everything in general for the most part. But my sister has actually been on this diet for about a year now, and I helped her lose 50 pounds. But she went to this she's mentally disabled. She goes to these parties with other mentally disabled people. Sometimes they have some food she shouldn't be eating, and she ate a lot of this food, and she got so sick that she was projectile vomiting, and my parents' knee-jerk reaction took her to the hospital. And what they did was this whole, I should make a video on it, this whole, crooked medical, they, injected her with this anti-vomit medication. They said they had to pump her stomach. They put a tube down her throat. And essentially all this girl did was she ate something she shouldn't have and had to throw it up. But it's crazy to think that although the root cause of what happened to her in the hospital was because of what she ate, they started diagnosing it as other things. My parents refused to believe that's what it was. Yeah. And she was stuck in the hospital for a couple of days. But then what happened was, after she got out of the hospital, a couple of days later, she did the same thing. She stuffed her face with ice cream and pasta and stuff after not having it for a while. Yeah. And the same thing happened, and my parents believed me then that that was what was wrong. But to not be too monotonous, there were just 2 points I wanted to bring up. One was that women are essentially artificially able to give birth now because we have enough calories to sustain ourselves, but that caloric amount would not be possible in nature without a large amount of vitamin consumption. So when we look at miscarriage rates, when we look at not abortion rates, but fetal problems, when we're able to pretty much artificially make humans now in the context of we have calorically dense foods, but if we ever had access to this amount of calories in nature, we would have the required nutrients to raise a child.
Yeah, you get the vitamin A, you get the vitamin D.
All these vitamins.
Fats.
I think a lot of those, it's interesting to see a lot of those things are parallel to that. And not only that, but Weston Price talks a lot about the physical impressiveness of these indigenous groups, their dental arches, their height. What's interesting to me is what determines the dental arch and the proper facial development and neurological development is the vitamins. What determines the physical impressiveness and height and stature seems to be the protein content of the diet. So when we look at those African tribes who were very tall, like the Nurs and the Maasai, who had a very high protein intake, versus the Swiss who had, ate half their calories from rye and maybe half from dairy, the people who ate grains were shorter, but they still had proper dental development and no that's just an interesting parallel in human nutrition, that we can be perfectly healthy on a diet that has plant foods. We
Yeah.
just might be a little shorter.
On a mixed diet. But I'd say that the animal foods is I wouldn't think it would be the protein, because when you look at vitamin D, vitamin K2, vitamin K2 being required for proper vitamin D utilization. So it's like the development of bones and teeth. I'd say like any diet that you're going to use that's going to help you, to remineralize teeth is going to be the same diet that'd be useful for growing a large, healthy human. Right? So it's like protein's going to come with those foods, though, right? It's like you're getting a lot of vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin K2. You're getting a lot of protein. Oh, you're muted.
I guess I meant more like calories from animal foods as opposed to protein.
Okay.
On that, but I guess all these people were also in areas where the taller people tended to be where there was more sun exposure. That being said, tall people now in like the Netherlands and stuff, not necessarily a lot of sun exposure. So definitely some interesting parallels between like physical height and nutrition. I guess the last thing that I wrote down here that I thought was important was that the grain-fed versus grass-fed debate is always about nutrient density, but I think there's something important to say about the hormone and antibiotic use in the conventionally raised animals, where when we look at the example of, did you want a second or you're good?
No, he's good. He's out.
Oh, okay.
He needed to show me his crown. It's very important that he said, sorry.
No. I just wasn't sure if you were paying 100% attention. So what the reason, I guess I just want to touch on that, why raw meat eating is harmful in certain modern foods. And so what happens is when we give cows antibiotics, I don't know if you know this yourself, but the stomach acidity in the cow changes to be much more acidic, whereas normally in the cows, in the ruminant stomach, it has a very low acidity, so it can ferment the grasses. So when they feed the cows this food and these antibiotics, it raises the acidity of the stomach because of the grain they're eating. And this E. coli, this bacteria that's now in this acidic stomach, is very resistant to the acid in the cow's stomach. So normally, if you took E. coli from a regular ruminant digestive system, that's, if you put that in a human stomach, the human stomach acid is strong enough to destroy it and get rid of it, and it's not harmful. But what you have is this powerful strain of E. coli that's resistant to stomach acid that can make humans very sick. So although Salmonella, E. coli, all those bacteria that occur in the digestive tract of these animals is harmful in the conventional context, it's because of what we've been feeding those animals and the antibiotics and the hormones and all of that stuff. And it's also just important to say in regards to there are possible negative things in the fat of the animal, not necessarily just a lower vitamin content in grain-fed. So I don't know if there were any other.
Now that's an interesting point about the E. coli becoming resistant to stomach acid. Is there anything you could point the audience to that would kind of back up the claim? Like, has there been any research done on the E. coli strains?
Yeah, I have a study right here. It's
just read off the abstract. Go ahead.
Yeah, growth promoting antibiotics in food animal production and economic analysis. Let's see.
They do also know that the RBGH, the recombinant bovine growth hormone, which is a Monsanto-based product, that was kind of pushed through in a very shady way when there was a lot of research showing that it was incredibly harmful to the animals and the people that eat it. And the cows that eat that are injected with the RBGH hormone require more antibiotics because they get mastitis. Their titties get chewed up because they're producing way more milk than they normally would produce. So then they get these antibiotics, and then, as you're saying, you're going to get these bacteria that are proliferating, become antibiotic resistant, and this is going to be floating through the human biome as well, which is pretty alarming.
So is that growth hormone in regards to the female milk production, or is that growth hormone also in regards to just the growth of the animal?
They give
Uh,
female milk production, and then it also, because the female's going to be producing more milk. I'm not sure what it actually affects the animal growth with, but yeah, that's not the only hormone that gets used. There's other stuff that gets used, but that's the main one that's really easy to show that it's that there's negative side effects to it. And everybody loves Monsanto. We all know that Bayer Monsanto would never do anything to harm human health or the health of our gut biomes and the microbiome of the soil.
well, we know that. I know in general, when you give an animal like a growth hormone implant under their ear, what it essentially does, it just increases the yield of the animal from 10 to 20%. So I can't, I know that giving the animals hormones to increase milk production and continue milk production is definitely harmful in some sort of way to the composition of the end product, but I'm not so sure about just using growth hormones in general just for growth of like steers and heifers.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, the RBGH definitely has negative effects as far as just growth hormones for steers and stuff. Who knows? It's not something I've researched. It's like the low-hanging fruit that's really easy to prove. It's like the frickin' RBGH is destroying these animals, and they got to take more antibiotics, which then destroys our biome as well. And that's a really
So
cool point
here
you
is
made.
the study, effective cattle diet on Escherichia coli, acid resistance abstract. The duration of shedding of E. coli O157 isolates by hay-fed and grain-fed steers experimentally inoculated with E. coli was compared, as well as the acid resistance of the bacteria. The hay-fed animals shed E. coli longer than the grain-fed animals, and irrespective of diet, these bacteria were equally acid resistant. Feeding cattle hay may increase human infection with E. coli. So what this study says is,
So that kind of shows that study is showing that both of them are having equal resistance to acid, both strains.
yeah, this might be the wrong study. Some of the results of this study compare E. coli when they fed when they fed. Did I link you this or no?
Let me see. I don't know how to. Oh, there we go. No,
I thought I put it in the.
I don't see it.
Oh, okay.
But maybe let's. Where is? Drop this. I don't want to see that. There we go. Cool. Awesome. Yeah,
So
but
that, I think
I mean, I'm
that,
sure it's something that people could research and
yeah, I don't want to go too
look
much
into it.
into
We
it.
don't need to. We don't need to play Google Scholar right now. And but yeah,
Yeah.
man. Let's see. So you mentioned what was the last point you made after the E. coli resistance? Oh, we were talking about female health,
Um,
female reproductive health,
well,
and nutrition
well,
and
but
vitamins.
before I was talking about that, and then after I was talking about there's also positive, negative aspects of grain-fed beef.
Okay, what would
I
the
don't know which
positive
one.
aspects be? There's something that I'm not too familiar with because I tend to kind of despise the whole factory farming apparatus and Monsanto,
Yeah, me
Cargill, and
too. And I saw like I've seen people on the carnivore diet try to justify consuming grain-fed beef and saying these animals are treated properly, but they're not. They're very sick animals. Their digestive systems are like being wreaked havoc upon by this. It's hard to justify consuming any sort of conventionally raised animal, but it's safe to say that in regards to grain-fed versus grass-fed, muscle meat isn't really what we're focusing on because even though that's what most people eat, if you try to, and I don't know how many different types of food you've tried, but for me, I've noticed that grain-fed fat, organs, other parts of the animal besides muscle meat are pretty much inedible on those grain-fed
you don't even get
animals.
it here because I live in Ecuador. Everything's grass fed. We haven't been. This country hasn't been given the
Oh,
slave
I forgot.
diet.
I remember I was on your Instagram and I saw you were in Ecuador and I was thinking, you know what? This guy might not have ever had really shitty beef.
No, I've never had grain fed organs. Never had
So
them.
so here so butchers actually call on the grain-fed beef cattle, they call the fat gristle because it's pretty much inedible. It's this hard, waxy substance that you can't really eat. But I'm sure in Ecuador, it's like the fat on those animals is like soft. It's like
There's not as
nutty,
much
grassy,
fat. You don't get as much fat.
and
But if they graze high up, in the mountains where there's a lot of these like herbs and stuff, then they'll get some more fat, but they're usually seasonal suet, right? You only get suet when it's really intense rainy season, then you get fat suet. If without the rainy season, you just get like a little tiny bit of suet around the kidney. It's interesting.
I think that ties in with how humans used to, they would get their nutrition off of like the summer and fall animals, and they would get pregnant for the winter and then give birth in the spring and summer again when the animals started grazing again and the sun was out. That's an interesting parallel about also when we should be, killing our animals, but
or getting pregnant, man. It's like you want to give birth in the middle of winter when you can't go outside and regenerate in the sun afterwards. Hell no. Like with both of our kids, we made sure that they'd be born not in the rainy season, because when you're regenerating, you want to be outside in the warm sun, and that's a lot of energy for a woman.
I think there's a lot of studies too that you could look up IQ levels and height correlation and birth weight of people born in those months versus the winter months. That there's some really compelling evidence there. But back to the grain-fed versus grass-fed thing, the reason I don't, like, a lot of people say, oh, there's no difference, but those people have never had a piece of grain-fed conventional beef liver next to a piece of baby lamb liver. Those people have never eaten grain-fed bone marrow that tastes like plastic clay and then had a sweet, nutty, grassy Australian bone marrow. There's a huge difference between the quality of organ meats and fat in grain-fed and grass-fed animals. It's the difference between a piece of liver being like bitter, astringent, inedible, you wouldn't even want to put in your mouth, to a piece of liver being sweet, slightly mineral flavor, very pleasant. It's just, and that grain-fed flavor that you taste doesn't become apparent until you've tried other foods. Now, when I try grain-fed beef or grain-fed fat, I can taste it and I can say it's a little bit off. And even with my super poor sense of smell, and this is just for the pure taste argument. Like, if we're going to talk about nutrient content, like muscle meat in general isn't really too important because the nutrients are stored in the fat and in the organs. So how can I really argue that a grass-fed steak is better for you than a grain-fed steak when the reason most people like grain-fed beef is because they're not buying that beef suet, they're not buying that extra fat, they're not getting that raw dairy fat in their diet. They're not eating enough fat when eating grass-fed. So for me to say that grass-fed steaks are better than grain-fed steaks would pretty much be like me saying you're getting a little bit, maybe negligible amount more vitamins in your diet. But
yeah, I think the organs with organs and marrow and that stuff's going to make a huge difference. Whereas, the steak, maybe not so much. But, I mean, as far as, like, the impact and what you're supporting, I mean, it's like the ecological impact.
That's a whole different, that's a whole different discussion.
I mean, you're supporting, Kissinger's buddies over at Cargill. And, so, I mean, these massive grain companies they're totally they've already destroyed small family farms in the United States. And the goal is to destroy it all over the entire world and use some of these breadbasket third world countries like Brazil to export most of the grain-fed beef, and Argentina as well. And so I mean, this whole global food, like the globalization of food supply, it all started in the 70s, and it's pretty fucked up. It's something that we're gonna go through a little bit more on this channel and kind of document and help people to understand this stuff a little more. Nice, you sent me this study. So, yeah, man, I totally agree with you. You know what's cool? What I notice here is even among grass-fed animals, you're going to get massive differences in taste, in the mineral content of the animal, depending on where they're from, what region they're from, and what season they're harvested in. And every native population knows this as well. There's times when you harvest the animals and times when you let them graze. There's times when they'll taste great. There's times when they won't. Same with bears. You don't want bears that are eating certain food that taste like shit. I mean, this is real human knowledge and stuff that we don't get. I mean, most of us, we're living in cities. We're not connected to where our food comes from. We have never touched an animal in our life. We've never, seen what how an animal is processed when you do harvest an animal. Like most people, and it's easy to program them. You show them some blood, they freak out. You show them, it's really easy to program them into thinking this is gross, it's unclean. But here you go to the meat markets, it's just open air. It's like your ancestors. And you're from Italy, right? Tufano.
Yeah, I mean, I'm born in New York. I'm like third, fourth generation Italian. But I was going to say, we actually have I go down to the live meat markets in the Bronx where these Muslim guys they'll slit a goat open for you and you take it home. I've done that. I honestly, you can't kill an animal on YouTube, right? Like,
I've
seen a
thought
video.
about just, yeah, I'm
I was
afraid
gonna
to.
do
I've
that,
never
but
gotten a
I was gonna,
strike, but
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
worried.
I don't. I've never seen a video on YouTube, so I don't think it's allowed. I mean, I've seen actually. I saw a guy do a live kill in New Zealand, and he actually shot the animal and did it, but I don't think might not be the best look for YouTube for sure.
But
But the,
the vegans tell me, "Oh, would you slaughter an animal in front of your child?" And I'm like, I've thought about, man, we got 10 cows up on our property. We could I thought about bringing the kids up there, would slaughter it up there, clean it and cut it. But
Well, if you ask me that, I say Billy the Goat is going to have a bit of a shorter day.
Yeah.
I'd be the first guy to do that because I understand how necessary it is, and I mean I think that.
But it's not
what was
necessary.
really-
It's not necessary, says Earthling Ed. It's not necessary. You don't need to. You can eat soy burgers.
What's crazy is like all this like what Weston Price referred to as like the ancestral wisdom and stuff, and all this knowledge that was passed down through generations and generations, how quickly it dissipated. And even just from 100 years ago, the information that my grandmother, I've talked about how my grandmother, her mother used to give her cod liver oil, and they used to cook intestines in the eggs, and even just 100 years ago, how all that information is going away.
You know what someone told me yesterday? I was talking to this guy who's like, my grandma grew up with dairy cows, like not as a dairy farmer, but everyone had dairy cows around. She used to drink raw milk every day. And he was like, when I tell her that I'm drinking raw milk and eating raw butter, she is scared now. So this isn't even like they brainwashed the next
That's
generation.
crazy.
This is like you watch enough TV, you believe fucking anything. Doesn't matter what you've seen in your
insane.
life, where you grew up, you'll believe it.
Not to backtrack too much, but something we do in America that's also drastically different from what you said. Where are you in South America? Uruguay,
Ecuador.
you said? Ecuador. So our breed of cattle are so much fattier. And do you guys do steers and heifers down there too, or you just let the animals usually follow their natural life course?
I mean, it depends. There's people who breed them more selectively. Like, I mean, it really depends. Most of them mixes, they just kind of, they
But
breed
you
as
don't
they
have
want.
like up here we have a lot of Angus and Hereford.
Nah,
and
nothing like that.
Just, yeah, we
You got
these
Holsteins
breeds.
and a few brown Swiss cows, but there's no top choice crazy roid rage beef.
Being around these New York City steakhouses and seeing all these like crazy unnaturally marbled steaks all day and how the price I could buy. I don't really, sounds crazy, but if I wanted to go buy USDA prime dry aged steaks wholesale, it's like $9 or $10 a pound, and this is specifically like top 3-4% of meat, and that's the price they're selling it at. So imagine where all that other stuff is going. And the amount of fat that these animals store and have in them is so drastically different from where you are that I think if people on the zero carb diet weren't in the United States, we'd be having a drastically different conversation today.
They'd be
'Cause they
getting
would
different
be-
results. They'd be eating more butter, and they'd be adding more fat, and they'd be buying suet and making tallow. Like a lot of people there, you see the steaks. A lot of people on a zero carb carnivore diet. Like there's the carnivore diet, just like there's the keto diet or the vegan diet. There's 100 ways of doing it, right? There's people who are just gonna eat ground meat. Check it out. Jessica's got some suet right here. We just got this. Now this is kind of seasonal. It depends on the area that it comes from. But how many? This is probably like 3 or 4
That
cows.
looks good.
It's really good. So I mean, this is so you can handle this. You can put it in your mouth. It's not bad, people. This is fat. This is animal food. This is what we give our kids. She'll render this and she'll make tallow. I don't want to pull it all out because I'll pull it all out. Let's get the screenshot.
Dude, you're making a goddamn mess. Oh my god. Oh my god.
But it's
Have
not
fun
even
cleaning
messy.
that
It's like
grease up, man.
there's
Oh
no
my
juice
God.
on me. My hands got a little bit of the waxy fat on them. I rub it into my skin. I mean, it's just fat. It's just animals, guys. But that stuff is seasonal and it's regional. So there's areas where those cows will make a bunch of fat. Those are the areas where it's always raining. And there's regions of the Andes where the air is just coming through and it's just fully raining all the time. So it's,
Yeah, a lot of like European places they'll have especially the DOCs for cheese, where this cheese has to be made in a certain area from certain cows in this certain process. A lot of those super high quality cheese and stuff are super dependent and specific to those areas because of those climate conditions as well.
That's such an interesting point, man, about the marbled beef, because I've noticed that too. It's like, man, if I was going to get a steak that was that marbled here, I wouldn't want to eat it because I know that it's been given a bunch of antibiotics and fed a bunch of grain. So I don't buy that beef.
And yeah, and it's just as you said, like people on this diet, you're saying some people are eating only ground beef and steaks and bacon and stuff, but from what I've seen, that's like 98% of the people on the zero carb diet right now. They have bacon in their diet, they have cheese, they have processed cheese in their diet. To my understanding, it's not like they're buying raw Gruyere imported from Switzerland. It's not like they're buying Grana Padano. It's not like they're buying American cheese. Like a step up from I don't know, store-bought stuff. But they're all eating the same thing. They're having ground beef, they're having steaks, they're having bacon, and a lot of them aren't losing weight. They're having digestive issues from eating all this rendered fat and grain-fed beef. And to me, it just seems like, although a lot of positive aspects come from following a diet like that, you're essentially removing all the inflammation, you're increasing your fat-soluble vitamin content to some degree, although that's arguable because grain-fed ground beef and steak and bacon doesn't really have a high fat-soluble vitamin content. These people are seeing benefits from
does, but I guess the grain-fed liver, do you want to eat that?
That's another big thing. Like, the reason they don't want to eat those foods is because they taste like shit, because the animals are sick and they're being fed poor stuff. Yeah. And if not, they're icky. They don't want to eat it. It's not.
So this is why we send people you got you mentioned U.S. Wellness. So there's a good resource right there. If you're in the States, you're worried, I can't get this, can't get that. Frank was doing U.S. Wellness meats back in 2012. He's a U.S. Wellness meats hipster. He did it before it was cool.
I know, right? Yeah. I hate that. To me, that website now, like, I can go, being in New York City and having access to all these wholesalers and meat purveyors and like live markets, I know what prices can be and what I can get meat for. So for me to go on a website like US Wellness and pay a certain amount of money, I'd rather just like, I went to my supermarket earlier today and they were selling Australian lamb shoulder chops for like $4.50 a pound. So I was like, oh, let me pick some up. And just for me, it's just a combination effect. You have people like Sean Baker, Michaela Peterson that say, I did this. You have what people generally have access to. You have what their palates have been accustomed to their whole lives. It's just this unfortunate circumstance where the carnivore diet has been paid and has been kind of like permanently etched in this light. And
it's not permanent, man. I mean, what's permanent? Like, there's always going to be, it's like, dude, there's always going to be fucking MTV. And is the best music on fucking MTV? Hell no. This barely even listenable. Like, it's the trash. It's the throwaway pop shit. And I'm not saying that, I'm not criticizing anybody. Like, I just talked to Sean Baker and Michaela Peterson. I love it. But I'm saying is, like, the message will always be diluted, and the simplest message will always be focused on as the straw man. But then there's still going to be that small percent of the population like you who are pretty freaking clued in, man. Like, you're an intelligent dude. Even though you said you've been sleep deprived for the last week, you're dialed in, you're focused, you're able to articulate this.
Yeah, imagine if I actually got a decent night's sleep.
Imagine if you got some good sleep. So now, people are going to be afraid. The carnivore diet's going to make me not sleep well now. But it's like, there's always people, then there's people who understand that there's always a bigger picture. There's other things going on, which is why I brought up the stuff earlier, too.
It's important to be honest.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, I could have not brought that up. I could have just brushed it off. But I think
you could have just said, "No, I'm perfect. I don't even poop now. I just exhale rainbows from my butthole." And
Oh, we should talk about bowel movements, because if you follow a raw carnivore diet, this guy was laughing hysterically at me when I told him I shit like a deer. If you follow a raw carnivore diet and eat what your natural appetite tells you to, you have. They call it the ghost wipe, like no wipe bowel movements.
The one wipe wonder.
No wipes at all. It's you literally have infrequent, like maybe once every other day or so, bowel movements that are no wipe. That's if your digestive system is like that. That's also one way to show that you're eating foods you should be eating. And that can happen even with cooked foods, even with certain foods, but once you start adding certain things, like for me, if I start adding cooked eggs, if I start adding dairy, things get a little bit up in the air.
You know what I noticed? Yeah, it fluctuates too, man. It's something that I noticed. Like, all right, food's obviously important. We talk about it a lot on this channel, but then there's so much else going on. Like, so even all right, so stress. I mean, all right, so you start getting stressed out. You're pissed off at life. Rah, 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 fuck all these people. The world sucks. You feel like shit. Your breathing's all fucked up. Your diaphragm's not pushing down. You're not getting that proper peristalsis and moving, so you might get constipation or diarrhea or bloating or gas just from being pissed off. You might not be sleeping well because you're pissed off. You're waking up in the morning, you get online, you're like, fuck this, I'm doing my emails, I hate my job, I hate my life. You know, it's like, you might be like, I'm not saying you, right? I was just saying people out there, it's like I might, you know, wake up in the morning and instead of going outside, getting a little natural sunlight, you know, sitting outside, maybe go down to the river, put my feet in the water, or maybe like, you know, just 10-minute cold shower, go outside, sunlight on my eyes, get that vitamin D, the vitamin, you know, get the cholesterol turned into vitamin D, set my circadian rhythm, and then I might be using my iPad at night at 10 o'clock, right? Just totally zonking myself with blue light. And then I'm like, oh shit, my carnivore diet doesn't work. Now I got to totally change everything I'm doing and do the complete opposite of what I'm doing. And I've only been doing this for a week, so I really have no idea what. It's like people are so quick to jump on the next fad, the next thing. And it's like, I mean, I talked to Vegetable Police the other week, right? Like he was doing this carnivore diet after eating a vegan diet for 10 years, totally degenerating on his vegan diet. And then he started eating a carnivore diet and everything started getting better. But then he still starts looking at all the little things that haven't become perfect yet. And it's like, oh, and maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to do a fruit cleanse. Maybe I need to go to Dan, the Life Degenerate's house and you know, learn how to fast for 30 days. And, you know, just all this shit. It's like people are constantly looking for something to blame everything on. It's like, we got to need a whole lifestyle approach, man. So, like, what else do you do, like, other than diet to keep yourself alive?
I was about to say, I mean, I think we could even push diet to the wayside and argue that those things you just mentioned, vitamin D, circadian rhythm, physical exercise, overall mental health, are far more important than diet is. And I would argue that myself. I think out of every problem right now that people have, vitamin D3 and sun exposure is the most important thing, and that's an understatement. Things like fasting, although that can be a very important discussion, and that's some things that I have done in the past, and that's probably things that humans have done in the past, that's a bit more complicated, and that's like, all right, once you're on a nutrient-dense diet, once you're getting these other things correct, then you can look into that. But until you're at, I think the baseline is you pretty much have to say, what would these indigenous people be doing during the day? Well, they'd be very active, they'd be eating these nutrient-dense foods, and they'd be in line with their circadian rhythm.
Be on Twitter, right? Be on Twitter, tweeting their homies.
If Twitter makes you happy, then I don't know.
I'm just kidding. I don't think Twitter makes anyone happy.
Yeah, I think those basic things are, you know, the diet, the physical activity, the vitamin D exposure, being in line with the circadian rhythm, and being happy and having that sense of community with that tribal stuff. But that being said, you had, you know, groups of Australian Aborigines that would literally kill and eat each other. So, that, you know, there are some exceptions to that, but I think for the most part, when we look at the healthy and happy tribes, I mean, it is interesting that there are some that the more violent tribes were still subsisting on wild plant foods and wild animal foods, whereas when the Neolithic Revolution came along and people stopped kind of beating each other to death with clubs, you know, grains were kind of taking the place of those wild plant foods, and they work together. But
I would say that's maybe a misinterpretation when we look at like agrarian agricultural civilizations and assume that they're somehow more merciful and more gentle. I'd say they're the most violent. They just implement this violent force of you know, this cultural force on a grander scale, right? It's like they're able to pool large populations in cities and then mobilize them for war on a bigger scale rather than like smaller populations that were battling for, you know, little turf, little gang warfare in the jungle.
Oh yeah, I didn't mean that. I meant like I know you read all of Weston Price's book, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
The Swiss in the Lochental Valley. Yeah. I'm thinking in my head of this perfect little Swiss town of these people, and they live their lives in like this storybook life. But Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like that's not.
Yeah, but
what
then
it
World
is,
War II happened, and a lot of those kids probably got sent off. It's like there a lot. There
Yeah,
was
that yeah, exactly.
there was probably. I mean, it's you've got a lot of stuff that's affecting it. But for sure, man, it's like it's hard. It's hard to pin down everything. You can't just say it's all diet, right? It's like everything you just said: community, health, family. That's why we got the rocking the Eat Meat Make Families T-shirt today. Where'd it go? There you go. Oh, Eat Meat Make Families. That's what we're all about. We're all about eating meat, making families, because it's not just about food. Like, it's about our culture. It's about what's important, what's real. Actually, the shirt, somebody was saying they needed the Eat Meat, Make Families shirt. I got this one in the shop right now. There's tanks in the shop, and I think a hoodie and a T-shirt, and then there's women's shirts coming. Sorry, had to plug the shirt for the people earlier in the audience. But
No, don't worry about
yeah, man, it's all about not just food. So I mean, like, so you get out in the sun. Obviously, you gotta.
Yeah, I try to. Before I started getting some sun over the past few months, I got a lot of feedback on my channel about my eye bag, saying I look so unhealthy because I was just supplementing vitamin D3. I hadn't gotten some tan or some good sun for at least a year, and as soon as I started tanning and getting in the sun again, the opposite. People were saying the opposite. Oh, you're so glowing. Are you wearing makeup? How do you get your skin to look like that? And do that.
Do you wear makeup?
You know what's so funny, man? I have to make a video on that because on every single one of my videos, there's some guy that's like, "Stop wearing makeup, buddies. Or your fake teeth are terrible." Like, it happens on every single video. And
I promise I'm not wearing makeup. I'm just Italian. I got beautiful skin.
It's like, it's funny because, like, it's this weird combination of, although like the shading around my eyes is from, like maybe being fed a soy formula when I was younger, having poor sleep, it looks like I have eyeshadow. And since I have dark eyelashes and eyebrows, it looks like I fill them in. And eating all this food, these high vitamin A foods, and being in the sun all the time makes my skin, pretty much glowing. So it is pretty much ideally.
You feel better when you're in the sun too?
Yeah, it's definitely. I think the sun is, out of everything, I would say the most important. And although there are periods of the year where we don't have sun exposure, what I've found is in a primitive setting, if you are out of the sun and not eating that much, you get very tired, very sleepy. You're conserving energy. As weird as it sounds to say that humans may have hibernated to some degree in the past, I think, when food wasn't as plentiful in the winter months in certain areas, we definitely reduced our caloric consumption and activity levels to some degree. So being in the sun means, to me, like, you're hunting, you're getting meat, you're getting calories, you're active, you're happy, you're mating with people. All of those things are associated to me with the sun. And then when the sun goes away, okay, do we have meat stored for the winter? Do we have do we have pregnant? I mean, there really is just way too much to really talk about and think about. And I think the easiest way to do it is to just boil it down to, okay, what are my goals to do? I just need to eat a couple nutrient-dense foods every day, stay away from inflammatory foods. Ideally, I would get X amount of hours of sun per week, and then I try to get to bed at certain times. I think that's a much simpler way of putting it, as opposed to trying to like theorize and talk about it and get into all of these things.
Right. Yeah. No, you eat a well balanced. That's the stupidest word in the world, but I mean, really, like, well balanced meaning nutrient dense, right? Nutrient dense diet. Get the right foods in. Get the foods you need. Get those fast soluble vitamins in. Get enough proteins and fats. The carbs are optional, and get outside.
I think one glaring thing we haven't really talked about is that our view on the carnivore diet has really nothing to do with eating meat. Essentially, it's more about nutrient density and the foods that are the healthiest for humans. And I think the main thing, I think me personally, I've kind of just overlooked the perspective of the carnivore diet, because to me, when I look at it, I just think, because of how I got into the diet. I got into the diet through Weston A. Price, through all of those books, reading about nutrient density. So when I look at meat, I look at fat soluble vitamins. When other people look at meat, they see red meat and they see colon cancer, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's people in stages, right? Like, there's people that are there, and those people might start eating meat again, and then they might like, all right, well, what else is out there? Okay, people are talking about liver. I'll try it. They'll try the liver. They'll feel 100 times better. They're like, damn, my mind just turned on. And then it's like, so I think there's a whole spectrum, you know? It's like if you 10 years ago saw your video, I don't know, whatever the last video you put out, if you saw that 10 years ago, would you have been receptive to the message?
Well, I actually just did a video today on Johannes von der Planets and my opinion of him. So I just think that the way I try to convey information is fairly direct and simple. And what was I doing 10 years ago, man? I was playing World of Warcraft. I probably wouldn't have even watched the video.
Right? So you'd be like,
Fuck
fuck this guy. Who's this hippie?
Yeah, I would have been like, I don't give a shit. You know, I don't care about this. Like, what is this? I'm a bodybuilder. I lift weights in the gym. I need carbs. I eat weight, you know. Right. But I think a lot of it is that people just don't come across the information. I think that's a big thing. And I think a major selling point for the carnivore zero carb diet that people are missing out on is the nutrient density, because, you know, what it really just boils down to simply is a food like salmon roe, which I did a video on 2 days ago, is literally the highest vitamin food there is. It has every fat soluble vitamin, every water soluble vitamin, every mineral, every element, highest amount of DHA. It's literally the healthiest food on the planet, and it fits into zero carbs. So to me, for these people to try to sell the zero carb diet and say, oh, it cured my arthritis, oh, I'm performing better in the gym, oh, it's all these anecdotes and all these things, that's one aspect of it, but that's how a lot of diets evolve. I mean, as I've said, I don't think I'm really thinking from the perspective that I should be, because I've been thinking this way for like 6 years now in regards to, you know, being so focused on nutrient density and that being the main goal of my diet, you know, regardless of what the food is. I just look at pretty much the vitamin content.
Yeah. So your favorite food, salmon roe? That's what, like the top food you'd say right now
for nutrient density.
Yeah, you mentioned it a few times.
So fish eggs, fish roe in general, and like akura, masago, tobiko, caviar, anything, it's the highest vitamin food there is, essentially. Liver might have more vitamin A and a little bit more vitamin K, but salmon roe has far more EPA and DHA.
And iodine too.
And salmon roe has a lot more iodine in it. It's just like to me, like I think in Weston Price's book, they mentioned that the Native Americans fed the roe to the pregnant woman and the nursing woman for the health of the child. And to me, it just screams nutrient density, because if you only ate 100 or 200 calories of the salmon roe, you could eat all the grain-fed steak you want, and for the rest of your diet, and it doesn't matter because you have your nutrient density right there.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's been so overlooked in general in the carnivore diet. I think it's crazy.
That's so
that
funny. There's no
just
the diet, though.
dismiss it.
It's just like the vegan diet, right? It's like there's a million different ways people are eating a vegan diet. You got the soy boy tofus, you got the juice fasting, third eye enema. You got a million different ways of doing it. So I think.
Yeah, but when I refer to, I just mean like that bacon ground beef steak guy. That's what I mean, you know.
But that's the people who are going to come to your channel. The people that first heard about that, they're like, all right, there's got to be more to this. And there you are, offering real deep information. You got the people that get into whatever band, they hear about, I don't know, so they hear some lame, like, band on freaking MTV, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to check out this genre. And then they find out where the roots of it come from, and then there's, the real... you got chopsticks and you got Chopin. So it's like.
But how do you feel about this though? Like, you're seeing all these articles saying that, this diet doesn't have enough of XYZ vitamins. It's bad. You don't have enough vitamin C. It's bad for colon health. Like, how do you feel about all this misinformation going against it?
I mean, it sucks, but it's like all we got. That's just kind of why I'm constantly. Yeah, I mean, I've spent probably. I don't know how much time, like maybe 7 hours just kind of reading pages from this book. Like, look, this is what they're eating. And I'm like, every time I get on a stream, I'm like, all right, look, this is the most important section of this book. If you're on a keto diet, here's the section that nobody even cares about, but that I'm freaking hammering about all the time. It's like the organs. This is like, these are the foods we need to be eating. So it's like, to me, I just kind of try to hammer it home. I try not to get annoyed. There's other things that, I could get more annoyed with. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how the world is, I think. It's like every message gets diluted and it becomes the McMessage. So it's...
back when I used to post on nutrition forums a lot, I had to stop. I stopped bringing up Weston Price because everyone said, "Oh, he's a quack."
He's a dentist.
He's a quack. He's a liar. That's BS. And I'm like, and now more recently, more people are supporting him and like his research, and they're actually believing in it. So there's definitely a shift for the positive.
Yeah.
But I just think this whole thing it's crazy how I got into this because of nutrient density and me believing that this is how we pretty much become human beings in optimal health. We have beautiful children, become beautiful people, and this whole zero carb diet is kind of like has squeezed itself in there, and I've kind of had to use it as like, oh, I'm kind of close to this, but at the same time, not everyone's exactly going to wake up and take a bite out of like a salmon membrane or something in the morning.
Yeah, right. It's like, so you got to kind of show people, all right, look, you've been doing the muscle meat, cool. Try this, dry some liver, put in the dehydrator. If you used to be a vegan, you probably got a dehydrator laying around. Dehydrate some liver, throw some salt on it, give that shit to your kids and see how they fight over it. And then you try it.
It's good, man.
Yeah,
that stuff's really good. I put some other stuff on it, but I was like, can I sell this to people? And then I was like, well, it'd be so expensive to sell that to people. Like the dehydrated liver. I was doing some math in my head. It was just like, no one's going to pay for this.
They got to make it
like
themselves, right? It's like, you teach people how to make it, I'm with you though, man. It's frustrating. You see a lot of propaganda. You see a lot of bullshit. It's like, just like with ketogenic diets are bad because look, we fed a rabbit some butter, or so we fed a rabbit, not even butter. What did they give it? Just like pure linoleic acid or something. I don't know. They gave a.
Yeah, that's the problem with all these studies. They're just feeding it hundreds to thousands of times what we would see in the human diet. Did we want to touch on like raw versus cooked or like frozen versus fresh?
Yeah, you kind of said that you don't really have a real opinion either way. That you think they both have their place. That
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead, man. What are your thoughts on that? We can maybe close out with that. Like the big issues, I guess, raw versus cooked, frozen versus fresh. We already nailed the grass-fed, grain-fed thing. You talked about that, and yeah, I think you've done a really good job at kind of portraying your message. Even though you say you're sleep deprived, but everybody's saying that people think you're wearing makeup because your skin looks so good, but you're not rocking the vampire skin.
Yeah.
You're not.
I just always try to think of like I always forget something, and there's always a question someone's gonna ask that like a glaring thing I missed. But the raw versus cooked thing, I think the initial quality of the food is all that matters. To be honest, like the initial food was high quality, nutrient dense, and that you're not cooking it for 10 hours straight. The fresh versus frozen thing, to me, it's how long ago was it frozen? Like, was the cow slaughtered last week and they just froze it and cryovac it and shipped it to you? Or has it been sitting in a freezer for 6 months? I just thought, I just did a video recently on, as I said today, on Vonderplanets, and a lot of my viewers are saying that frozen versus fresh makes a huge difference in regards to the meat, but my personal experimenting, I've never noticed a difference.
Neither.
I've never seen any scientific data that indicates that there's any beneficial bacteria or enzymes that occur in frozen meat that don't just become present again when it's fresh. So to me, those two things don't really matter.
People like to make big deals out of little things. You make a mountain out of a molehill, and that's how a lot of people get their attention. You got a lot of people that are dealing with extreme eating disorders in the past and present when they get onto these diets, and they just turn everything into a freaking religion, It's like, I think that eating meat raw, cool. You want to eat it raw? Great. You want to eat a bunch of salt? Great. That work for you? You want to not eat salt? Cool. You want to eat it, if you want to burn your meat, I don't know, whatever. But
listen, man, that 900-degree broiled steak from Peter Luger's slathered in clarified butter.
Not into that. Not into that.
Salt, man. Hey, even as someone who's on a raw diet, that sounds too good right now.
To me, it's like medium rare is like, all right, I might defriend you, but well done, you're gonna get blocked. That's
it's weird. Like when I don't know about you, but I like the texture of raw meat more. But I like the flavor of like medium rare. But the texture, anything past that, I can't even eat it.
Medium rare texture is great. Like on a T-bone, if you like kind of pan sear it and then oven finish, I kind of like that. That can be good. Because we get real good priced T-bones here. None of the steak here has a lot of. We'll usually get sirloin T-bone, and then we do butter. I'm fine with butter. I do great with it, and we do obviously a lot of tallow, sheep tallow, beef tallow, organs. But yeah, I think the flavor. You're right, man. Raw meat, the flavor. I don't know. I'm not into it. Like I could force it in. can't eat that much of it. I like to sit
But
down.
you don't do salt, right? No
I
salt
do
for
a lot
you?
of salt, man. Yeah. No, I do
Oh,
a
you
lot of
do?
salt. Yeah, I don't want
So
to. I didn't want to argue about it or anything. I think
oh
salt's
no,
good. I
I'm
don't think it's
curious because
bad. I don't think
I
it's.
think I have a problem with like me taking that Accutane
Yeah.
and getting so thirsty when I drink. Maybe my kidney function and liver function isn't that good. So
But
when
when
I
you don't
take in
eat
salt, I
salt,
get really thirsty.
don't you like? All right.
I
So what I'm worried about with salt. Now, of course, just because someone's a doctor doesn't mean everything in their book is true, right? I think there's another thing. People, oh well, this doctor said. Well, Doctor Greger said that, or, but this Doctor Dicko, Doctor
Dr.
not
Wool,
the
Dr. Goblin,
Doctor David Wolf.
Dr. Banshee.
Well, what Dr. David Wolf says is that chocolate is the octave of the sun. No, the Dr. DiNicola Antonio did that book, The Salt Fix, and if you read any of the book, it's actually decent.
Yeah, I did. I read some of it.
He
I have the
says
general
that
summary.
and makes a really good point that when the body is depleted of sodium, that the kidneys will have to work much harder to hold on to salt and to recycle the salt that's in the body and to maintain that the homeostasis. So I just find that with more salt, I do sleep better, and if I sweat a lot, like it gets hot here. I found my body's always sweated a lot, but actually when I do more of a carnivore keto diet, or even just a straight keto diet, even with veggies, I don't sweat as easily, but I run hot, like I'm sweating, my butt's sweating
What's
right
your
now.
what's your water consumption like? Like, do you get really thirsty when you eat your salted food?
No, I mean I had 2 cups of water during this, but that was in the morning. I had like half a glass of water, maybe 3 liters a day maximum. But if I do a lot of sweating, maybe more water.
Some of those rummy guys don't think we should drink water at all, and
Some of those raw meat
I
guys
think.
say that cooking meat is satanic, and then they also are
But
super into Satanism. So I don't really know what to think
well,
about.
I don't want to get into that. No, but those guys are nuts. But what I did want to say was I was watching a documentary, Bushman Hunters in the Kalahari, and these guys would run for 5-6 hours and not drink any water, and then all the water they would have would be from like a melon, and they'd have that. So
Interesting.
I think in the context of like someone in perfect health on an indigenous diet, with perfect organ function, we could be having a different conversation. But in modern context, I think water and electrolytes are just the whole thing that needs to be explored for everyone.
Most of the water that people are
sure.
drinking, it's definitely depleted of any mineral content at all. Although the water I drink's got a good amount of magnesium. It's a spring water. So, somebody asked how much water I drink. I think I answered that already, but about 3 liters depending on the day. Sometimes more, depends. I'd be more concerned about your kidneys on low salt, but that's just, I mean, you got your own opinions. I got my own opinions.
I'm putting some salt on my steak tonight for you.
Nice,
See if
bro.
I like it.
Nice. Now, I would say I think we get used to eating in a certain way, and then when we change it, it feels weird no matter what. And I usually tell people, like, even when we're clients and stuff, I'm like, look, give it 2 weeks. If you hate doing like, eating in the morning, for instance, right? Like ladies having trouble losing weight. I'm intermittent fasting 18 hours a day. I'm just like, your cortisol is freaking jacked up for the whole day. And like, you maybe eat breakfast. And they'll be like, yeah, I don't know. I've tried it before and I hated it. And he's like, yeah, you did it for 1 day. So I usually say give it a couple weeks. But I don't know. I would be more concerned with kidney function just because of what I've read on low sodium diets than high. And I think maybe it just takes an adaptation period of eating enough salt. But I don't know, man. I'm not here trying to preach to you. It's just like,
Hey, no, I'm always that no salt thing was just something I recently tried in the past few months. Before that I always salted my food, and I'm always open to being objective and trying new things. Like
the timing of the sleep issue just maybe that coincides with that. Maybe it
it could be. Yeah, it really could be. I'm thinking that right now, but one night I went home, I put like half a pound of salt on some fish, and it didn't help. So I was like, maybe.
Can I send you a chocolate bar, 100% cacao bar from Ecuador? They're in the States
man,
right now. It'll get there in like a week or so. Would you eat it?
Oh, they're in the States? I feel bad. I gotta send you something, right?
Yeah, you gotta fly out, give me a hug. No, you.
Like, would I see results from just eating one bar?
No, I'll send you a bar and I'll send you a bag of cacao. But I just want to see if you like it. I don't know, like if you got a sensitive gut, if you react to it. Because some people feel great with good chocolate.
I'll go. They probably have it at Whole Foods, right? It's just like raw cacao.
Well, I just want to send you one and see if you like it. I don't know.
Yeah,
if you like it,
man.
you could just
Yeah,
tell me you like it. That's all.
Yeah, I'll give it
Maybe
a
if
shot.
I talk about the chocolate right now, people will buy it and that'll pay for it, right? Because we do sell it on our site. Like, I'll send you a bag of this cacao paste, which is just 100% cacao, not like, but the bar is a special one. It's all stone ground and it's like seasonally harvested. It's like really small plantations that they get it
So
from.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just to be for people like me who are slightly unfamiliar with the cacao making process, they take the
Chocolate
fruit.
fruit of the chocolate.
Yeah, they take the
slice it
fruit.
open. Big thing
Yeah.
full of slimy, goopy stuff. That
Yeah.
goopy stuff stays on it. You put it in a huge pile. It gets to about 180 degrees in the middle of that pile as all the carbohydrates start fermenting.
Yeah.
So it's a giant fermentation pile. Stir it every few days. Then after that, it gets stone ground. And this stuff gets stone ground in like a specific way, at a specific temperature. They try to keep it mostly raw, which I don't think that's important at all. But this bar, they went to the chocolate awards, and it's all sugary bars, right? All sugar. This one's 100%, and it got silver medal. And nothing else placed in top 10 that was less than 70% cacao. All right, so this is a 100% cacao bar. So yeah, we got it on our site, guys. You guys, it's in our site on the website. I'm gonna send Frank one. Maybe he'll like it, maybe he won't. But I think that might be cool just to try if the cacao paste, if you like it for magnesium. But I think the electrolyte thing, I don't know.
Is it bound to? Are there oxalates in it though?
There's
What's
oxalates,
the-
but
how's
then
the
there's also a
oxalate
lot of
content?
magnesium and selenium. So
I see.
it's
That
a
makes
weird
sense. Okay.
thing, right? It's like, so this is one of those plant foods where it's prepared in a specific way.
Yeah.
It's like there's oxalates in sauerkraut, but a lot of people can do well with it. Or histamines too. Some people suck with the sauerkraut. Some people do well. So I don't know. It's just one of those interesting
Yeah,
things.
on paper doesn't necessarily mean how it's going to do for you.
I guess, man. I
Makes
think
a lot of
we all got a lot to learn on this stuff. But it's the one
I'm
plant
gonna,
food that I eat regularly. I'll show one. That you can tell I eat them regularly because they're in my desk. But it's like that's the bar I'll send you. I'll send you one. These are great though. 100%. There's
So,
another one that has little nibs in it, but I like the 100% better.
Sounds like something I could eat and then take a little bit of raw honey and then run down the street.
There you go. I'm thinking,
caffeine, right?
I just want you to sleep well. You're such a good dude. I hate not sleeping because the last time I couldn't sleep, I got all gassy for some reason. I just wasn't able to sleep for a few days, and I was just feeling so shitty.
On the 5th day of not sleeping, I was about to lose my mind.
So what happens?
Literally, because I was working. I was bartending at this restaurant, and I was just like, it's just like it. Wasn't sure if I could function because the main thing that happens is, you know how like I've forgotten a few points that I was talking about right now?
Yeah, right.
The main detrimental thing from insomnia that I've noticed is short-term memory loss. I left my car running in my driveway 3 days ago, and I forgot I left it running that I was going to go back out and do something. It's just I'm forgetting. The worst part is I'm forgetting little things here and there. Like at my job, I would forget to bring up some rags or to get a bottle of wine from downstairs, or just something I would forget. So regardless, it's just crazy that despite that, I mean, I don't want to. I keep getting back to this stupid insomnia topic, but
Dude, no, it's an
literally
interesting one, man. It's an interesting thing. And people who go on like they cut carbs out. Some people they start getting electrolyte imbalance issues, and I usually think that. I don't know. I usually ask how much salt they're eating. That's like the first thing, and it usually ends up helping.
I could see how people can go crazy, and like I got a new perspective on it now. Like I've always been a really level-headed guy, and I've never been too emotional. But like these past few weeks have kind of opened my mind to how people can kind of be more like knee-jerk reaction, or like have a bit more of like a subjective approach to things. Like although it's been a negative experience, I try to take positives from everything.
Yeah, man, for sure. You learn a lot from yourself when you're suffering. It's like when you learn the most, man.
I guess I should. I know you want to really wrap this up, but
I don't need to wrap it up. You want to watch crazy vegan videos?
I got to. I was gonna say, I don't know if you saw. I was on MasterChef. Well, I wasn't really, but I competed on the show.
Okay.
I don't know. The reason I'm bringing that up is because I do have like I've always been really into food and cooking and culinary stuff, but this zero carb diet like almost threw all that stuff out the window.
Oh,
so
man.
for me to see like you're doing like the dried liver stuff, and I did that, but I had a bag of liver in my cabinet next to some peppermint oil, and after about a month, now the liver only tastes like peppermint, so it's not good.
Peppermint, man. It can be good in small amounts in chocolate peppermint oil. Very small amounts.
I'd really love to move towards like the like you're having the cacao. I'm messing around too with a little bit of raw honey. I'd love to
Yeah.
see, what types of like high quality wild plant foods I can actually get access to. It'd be nice, but it's really unfortunate about, you walk into a grocery store and you can't buy anything. It's crazy now.
Yeah,
It
you
really
can't get
is.
really good foods. It's
I mean,
hard
it's
to
probably
get
a
good
little bit
quality
different by
stuff.
you, but
That's
in
why we
America,
live
like,
here, It's like we wanted to be somewhere where we had good access to food and where we didn't feel like it was being threatened by, the global monoculture. At least, I mean, every single culture in the world is under attack by this. You still get Coca-Cola. We can take a 5-minute walk and go get some Coca-Cola.
yeah.
But hey, at least here they're not crackheads selling crack and heroin in front of the 7-Eleven. The culture's not as degenerated here in certain ways, but it's a third world country, which is funny. A lot of people comment like, "Oh, you live in a shitty third world country, dude." And it's just like, I love it. It's like that's why I live here. I'd rather live in a third world country than the Northern California Silicon Valley social engineering shithole that I was in before. So yeah.
So you have a pretty interesting perspective going from doing that to and that's something that I've always envisioned sometime down the line, moving more towards something like what you're doing myself. Having not just, I don't think like homestead's a good word, but being somewhere where you're not like, I'm in New York City, so I feel like I'm playing a game every day, and
Yeah.
I'm not doing good at it, but I'm competing with everyone else at the same game. So I'm in the same boat of like just wanting to opt out. But although I can't do that yet, it definitely seems like there are a lot of people that on this diet, and just people in general, especially a lot of like farmers and homesteading people that have, found happiness and success in doing things like that. And not to mention, it's got to be, me breathing in these brake fumes every day has got to take about 10 years off my life.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it too, man. The air quality, food quality, water quality. I think these are all important, and also social quality. I think our social lives have been really depleted through the internet. Even though it's like, oh
No,
yeah, like
it sucks.
I get online, I can get game with my friends, and it's like, yeah, right. Like these people, even like people that act like they're your friends online. I mean, it's they're marketing friends. Half of them, they're just like, oh yeah, like I love it, like it's so awesome, and then they just steal your ideas and freaking don't give you credit. It's like it is what it is, man. But I think
Go figure.
that sentiment, it's like kind of where it starts. It's like you want something different. Well, there you go. That's the desire's there, and if obviously you're an intelligent, capable dude. And you made it out of the womb with 2 other beings in the womb. So you fought your way into this life, and I think you'll be
Yeah,
able to
man.
do whatever you really put your mind to, man. I mean, it's like, shoot, you got all this skill with the chef stuff. I mean, you start playing with that and refining it. You got those ideas that you're holding close to your chest. Do it, man.
Yeah,
Publish
man.
it.
Let
Make a
me.
book. Do it, bro.
I'll. I've always thought about a book, but I've never really figured out how to get started. But I've definitely written up things like I have a menu here, like einkorn sourdough bread with raw butter, cold pressed olive oil, like just like foods that I would consider pretty much like high quality indigenous foods prepared, to be like tasty and stuff, like things like that. That's really interesting to me. But to me, it's just crazy that like I work as like a bartender, and then I do this, so it's kind of like two literally completely different things, like in being in the
Super healthy
certain.
lifestyle, all about health, and you work in a
Yeah.
place like where everyone's just
and
like,
and
fuck me,
and
drink.
yeah, the New York City hospitality industry is like the opposite of health.
Right.
Everyone goes in New York City.
There's
Everyone
lots
goes
of
out,
drugs in
everyone
the
has to
hospitality
drink,
industry all over too. Everyone's on coke. All the bellboys are selling
everyone
drugs.
smokes. And like everyone at the end of every night after service, everyone goes out for drinks, and then I was in the opposite of that before. I was personal training when I was really into bodybuilding, and there's negatives to both aspects, but it just feels weird how like everyone I just feel like everyone's playing this game that they don't want to play,
We all got to make
um
money. We all do have to pay the bills, But it's like I think there's ways to do it where at least you feel good about what you're doing, right? It's like we don't sell shit that we think is shit, We sell like
yeah
we got a
yeah
book that
yeah
my wife worked a year on. I got these shirts that are about to. I think people will like these. You know, what I mean, it's just you got the eat meat, make family shirt, guys. Got a shill for the shirt too, but it's like, you know, I mean, there's ways you can get by in the economy and feel all right about it and enjoy your life. So I think what you've got on your channel there, you got something that's good, it's pure, and it's like people flock to it for a reason. You know, I had like 10 people. You got to get Frank TUFANO on. I hadn't even heard of your channel just because, you know, I mean, YouTube suggested is usually what people freaking, you know. And then as soon as like the first video I watched, it was like, oh, cool. There's a guy that gets it. Like he seems like he's, you know, doing a non. You know, he's doing he's not doing the straight up just eat muscle meat and have salt and water. Like you had a more perspective. So yeah, man, I think what you're doing is great, and I'm excited to see where you go with it, because obviously, you know, maybe bartending's not you're not too stoked on. Do you work nights?
I could give you a little bit of my employment history. So the past few months I was working, yeah, it's all nights. So I was working at
That's why you can't
restaurant.
sleep, dude. Your circadian rhythm's messed up from working at night.
Yeah, it's probably all fucked up. But I was working at Il Molino, a very fancy Italian restaurant. I was supposed to work out in the Hamptons, which I don't know if you're too familiar with New York, but the Hamptons is like where
Posh.
all the rich people go out for the summer, posh, super expensive. I was supposed to bartend out there, but it didn't work out. So I started bartending in the city again. I literally just left that job 3 weeks ago because I was about to throw the GM through the wall, but that's a whole nother story. So the Hamptons didn't work out. I worked there for a couple months. Now I'm looking for something else. But before that, you know Salt Bay on Instagram?
No.
Salt Bay? The guy that sprinkles salt on the steaks?
No, I gotta find him. Sounds nice.
Man. It's like this meme from last year. This guy, like, he cuts the steaks. It's like this Turkish guy who's muscular, wears a white T-shirt. He's got this long hair. Yeah. He's got these glasses. He sprinkles salt like this on the steaks. That's his
flexing and doing the salt.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he opened a steakhouse in Manhattan. So I did that earlier this year, and but I had to leave that to go on that stupid TV show that I didn't end up actually on. I just went out there for the final audition, so to speak. And then before that, I bartended at a cocktail bar in Nomad. I would work from like 5 or 6 p.m. to like 2, 3, 4 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. And before that, I worked at a big steakhouse, Del Frisco's, where I'd work nights too. But just very high stress, high volume environment. You know, I drive in the city, so I got something wrong with me, like 100%. Like, all
right, so everything you told me there, it's like, you know, with the, I don't know, when we do like the Keto Collective, we do it every other month, except we're doing it 2 months in a row now because it seems like people are asking if there's a September one. So we are doing September Keto Carnivore Collective, guys, and enrollment's open now, but we dedicate like one of the weeks to just talking about circadian rhythm, you know, and it's like night shift. That's one of the hardest people to like help with health issues. And the fact that you're doing so well, but you do have the insomnia, obviously, but that insomnia can definitely usually lead to other things in people, right? Like not sleeping, not getting proper detoxification pathways open, not really, you know, it's blood glucose issues during the day if we don't sleep. Like one night of poor sleep can give us pre-diabetic blood glucose numbers. So that's like, we always work with clients on that. So, I mean, everything you told me about, like, right, the stress and the lifestyle, changing jobs. 3 weeks ago, you changed your job. 2 weeks ago, you started getting insomnia with the racing mind. It's like, dude, you're at a crossroads, man. Like,
I'm out of my mind.
You're wrecked. You're wrecking your body, working your ass off at nights. You're not liking your job, so you're conflicted about what you're doing a little bit. Like, you know, I mean, I definitely sympathize, man. I'd say, like, you know, if you could find a job in the day, that's definitely going to be better for you.
I'm thinking about getting back into personal training. There's a gym opening up by me. Are you familiar with Lifetime Fitness at all? They're these huge, fancy, expensive gyms where people pay like $200 a month to go to. Nice. There's one opening up by me, so I'll see how that works.
You got the hospitality background. I think that like you could definitely diversify. What about a bellhop during the day, man? I used to make really good money or a valet. You ever get valet jobs can be hard to get.
The problem with any hospitality job in the city is the reason that I've bounced around so much is that you can't get a good job without a connection. I know. You got to pay sometimes to get a valet job. All the jobs that I've gotten have been based off of my cold calling, my charisma, kind of like trying to get in there, my persistence and applying to these places. So, but you got to imagine, like, I go into this place and these guys have been working there for 3-4 years. I'm not going to be making good money. They're going to be making good money. Yeah. So there's always that in New York City, there's always that aspect of, you know, if you don't have a connection, the chance of you getting a job making good money is very, very, very low unless you can work a job where your sales skills are paramount. And in the food and beverage business, that would be like a sommelier, someone that sells wine. But I have a bad sense of smell. I've never smelled fruit on wine in my life.
You ever
so
thought
that's
about just
out.
asking people for money on YouTube? Just like, hey, I'll keep making YouTube
You know,
videos if you give me money, or like
Dude,
find a girlfriend who's got some money or something. No, I'm just kidding.
So, it's funny. There's I've always you know what horse girls are, right? Horse girls.
No, what's a horse girl?
You don't know what horse girls
Is that a
are?
New York like posh
No,
society
it's not a New
thing?
York thing. There's probably some idiot in the chat that knows what it is. Horse girls are like rich girls with daddy problems because the only way a girl can afford to have a horse as a pet is if they had
For
an
sure, she's a
exorbitant amount
rich
of
girl.
money, and they form this bond with this beast that you can never live up to,
Yeah.
and like it's just this whole weird dynamic with these rich horse girls. Why did I bring that up? Because that's
You need a horse
I'm
girl.
not-
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
You're right. So any horse
That's-
girls out there, you hate your dad, you want to get back at your dad, there's a dude right here. No, I'm just kidding.
That's funny. No, it's funny because I've had it's funny you bring that up because I've had literally like half a dozen people say, "Oh, dude, make a PayPal, make a Patreon. We want to support you." And I've been thinking about it. I've never been the type of guy to ask for handouts or ask for that, but I think at this point I could say, "Hey guys, this is what I'm doing. If you support me, you're supporting this." So
I'm all about just like if you got something like I mean, I'm sure you could put together a nice little cookbook with all your knowledge, with being a pro chef, an almost on TV chef, right? It's like you got stuff where you could offer something where people are like, yeah, I want that, and I'll give you some cash for it. So, I think you got a lot of opportunity, man. It's like it's hard when you're in between shit and then you're just like your mind is racing about it. You're like, the emotional aspect of that can be really hard, right? Because it's like just like you said, man, you're surrounded by people doing what they don't want to do. You soak that up. But then there's like, I mean, it's not everyone, man. It's like not everyone's doing what they don't want to do. And it's like you just got to, I don't know. To me, it was just like figuring out, all right, what do I like? What can I do? What am I decent at? And just doing it. And you don't make shit when you start. But then eventually,
I think
maybe a few people will buy your shirt. Maybe a few people, maybe 10 of you motherfuckers will buy a shirt. Make me some damn money so I can pay for my daughter's horse. So she could give it away to some kid.
I think I'm a little contradictory because, like, if you put me on Wall Street, I would 100% steal money from anyone. Like, in that context, I wouldn't care.
Yeah, the next
But,
Wolf
like,
of Wall Street here. There you go. A little Jordan
like,
Belfort
it's-
action going on.
Yeah. Like, I could see myself doing that. That sounds fun.
Dude,
But
the
no,
guy that
no.
got me into a vegan diet ended up robbing a bank. 2 banks.
That seems a little. More.
He's in prison now, but
Dude, I'm like if anyone on this planet would do badly in prison, it would be me. I'm like 5'7", 140 pounds. I'm like prettier than most of these guys' girlfriends. Like I would be complete. Dude, I've had gay guys come up to me and call me like, one is like jailhouse candy. It's like, dude, don't get me started on that. I am the last person that would be committing any sort of crimes, whether economic or robbing a bank.
all right.
Last
So
thing that I'm gonna.
anybody who's looking into Frank Tufano here, I think it's pretty obvious that he's recently committed economic crimes that he's covering up. So that's the one takeaway.
It's funny. There's some guy in what's the prison by me? He's licking his lips right now. I'm watching this.
Yeah, you got
podcast on
Bubba.
his 1 hour.
You got
of
white
free time.
supremacist Bubba licking his lips. Like I got cute little Frank coming. Nah, I'm playing. No, dude, it's a good place to be at. You're at a crossroads. It's freaking scary and it sucks sometimes, but I think that's a good place to be. At least like it's better to know that you don't want to do what you're doing than to freaking lie to yourself and tell yourself this is the only way. Yeah. So it's like it's gonna come together, man. This has been really, really fun. I really appreciate you like kind of sharing so much about yourself, being so open. This is like, I mean, who could have asked for a better chat? Dude, that's just completely honest and open, not trying to deceive anybody, not trying to play the.
Yeah, I'll make sure to have something to sell for you guys next time. I'll sell something.
There you go. So, you guys
Some
can we? Is there something that they could private message you for like little dance action?
It's funny. I I have some cosmetic products that I make for myself that I've been thinking of. I've been trying to find a supplier to
You said you don't
a
wear
production
makeup. Now
line.
you're selling cosmetics?
Deodorant, toothpaste, and lip balm.
Nice.
Not
There you go.
like more like hygiene products.
All right.
Like
The
natural
people
hygiene
the
products.
people who say you lie and you're wearing makeup, they're gonna take it out of context and edit it
Well,
together.
technically, yeah, they will. But there's technically nothing on my face right now.
Dude, I think there's a lot
Technically.
of space for that kind of stuff. You know, good deodorant,
Yeah.
good like real like personal hygiene products for the stinky vegans out there. You could do it cruelty free.
Hey man, listen, being in New York City, I met plenty of very, very pretty vegan girls, and they just all smell, man. I just don't know what it is.
How long are they
Like,
gonna be pretty for?
I can't stand.
How long
within
before they
3
get
feet
that
of-
Mary Kate and Ashley beauty?
Probably about 6 or 7 years.
All right. They got that beautiful meth head look.
Well, I'm sure you're familiar with Chris Kresser, right?
Yeah.
Like he's a guy he's very successful to my understanding. Like him, Rob Wolf, like Mark Sisson, all those guys are very, very successful, but they don't necessarily have any like I think Chris Kresser is a chiropractor. I think Rob Wolf actually is a MD. But these
Rob
guys
Wolf
aren't
he was a
necessarily-
biochemist. He's an internet marketer,
Yeah,
man.
that's it, that's
He's
what
a
it is,
marketer.
yeah.
He wrote some books and
Guys
stuff.
are-
He markets his books.
Yeah, that's what.
There's people, and he brings people value. You know, he brings people good information. I mean, depending on who you ask, good information, and he brings people value. So, you got value to give, then there's people out there who will give you their horse owning daughter for said value. But yeah, dude. Thanks for coming on, man. It's been 3 hours already. I'd watch some
Yeah,
crazy
it's way too
vegan
long.
videos and make some laughs about the vegan videos, but I don't think I've got time, and my freaking back hurts from sitting in this damn chair for 3 hours, half my day.
Yeah, I've got to run myself, man. I gotta go down and see my grandma.
You gotta go down and rob that bank.
I think if you robbed the bank in the Bronx, you'd get like $60, but.
You see, you got to tape the eyebrows. That'll give you away, man. You got
Probably-
the signature eyebrows. You got to cover those up. You're gonna rob the bank.
I would put if I put pantyhose on my face, they would just be like, suspect 5'8", huge eyebrow. I don't know.
Beautiful
Something
skin.
like-
The suspect is 5'8" with perfect skin.
Suspect has glowing skin.
He has glowing skin, and he
had
smells
flashing
like
white
raw
teeth.
liver.
Dude, funniest story. When I was working at that steakhouse, I had the worst sunburn, and I would rub cod liver on my skin, and people thought I smelled like fish, but I couldn't smell it because I had it on me the whole time. That was just funny story.
That's so funny. Cod
Cod
liver oil is a funky smell. There's definitely a funk.
It's bad.
I like cod liver oil. That Green Pastures fermented cod liver oil. That stuff's good, man. That stuff is. I like it.
Yeah, to me, that's in the realm of stuff that's way too expensive.
It's too expensive. I know.
Or
We were looking at it
vodka.
like we need to get some more bottles, but we're like freaking $40. No
Yeah,
way.
it's crazy. It's too much.
So we'll just eat liver. You know what you get here? Instead of cod livers and stuff like that, there's this animal. It's kind of like a skate-like creature that lives in the ocean. And Weston Price writes about it in his book. It's called angelote. And you get those huevos de angelote.
that cute little amphibian thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that what I'm thinking of?
No.
That cute looking thing?
It's
Oh.
like a stingray, but it's got like two sets of wings, kind of. Angelote. So you get those huevos de angelote, and it's just these beautiful little red eggs. They look like they're dried egg, and it's the size of this microphone, and it weighs like a pound. This dried egg.
Oh wow.
And that's how they would get the minerals that they needed in the Andes to maintain fertility, because they couldn't get a lot of iodine up here because it's just the soil gets washed out. So here people get a lot of issues with thyroid and goiter because there's low iodine, and they've been, they're eating white flour now, and they've been robbed of kind of all their cultural heritage foods. But you still get them in all the markets, and people who know what's up, the indigenous who know what's up, they eat those little angelote eggs. So it's kind of our version of salmon roe, but they're dried. Mm-hmm. My daughter begs for them. She loves them.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'd probably be half a foot taller if my if I had some foods in my diet. It's that curse of dude, I'm literally the tallest person in my whole family of all relatives, and I'm like 5'7.5".
You said 5'8" earlier. Now you're getting shorter. You lost a half inch within like an hour.
I like to push my luck a little bit. Depends on who it is. Sometimes I'm 5'9", sometimes I'm 5'8".
I used to think I was 5'9", then I realized I was 5'8", and now I'm thinking I might be a little under 5'8".
I'm just under 5'8".
But you know what? If you're the shorter you are, if you look at your weight, it means you're more jacked for your height. So you can tell yourself this to boost your ego. Your former bodybuilder can tell yourself, hey, you know what?
I try not to worry
I
about
do
it,
weigh
you know?
140 pounds, even though I'm 5'7".
Even though I have the frame of Peter Pan, I do weigh.
Yeah, well, at least you don't have the Peter Pan diet. At least you're eating a nutrient-rich diet, and you're I mean, even with working night shifts. And you I just think it's so funny. You think your insomnia is from diet when you're working night shifts. To me, that's funny as hell.
Yeah, no, I mean it could be a couple of different things, but
dude, the night shifts are killer.
My circadian rhythm's definitely off.
Yeah, but that's I just want to say thanks a lot for coming on, man. We've reached the 3-hour point. I'd do another hour of laughing at vegan videos with you, but I got sunshine outside, or I'm gonna turn into a vampire, so I gotta get off. So Frank Tufano, you can check him out. His YouTube channel is Frank Tufano, Tufano. I'm gonna put a link down in the description below. We talked about nutrition and physical degeneration. I know you're on Instagram too, right?
Yeah, Instagram, same thing.
You on the
Tufano,
Twitter? You on that Twitter?
Usually just shirtless pictures. I don't go on Twitter yet, man.
No, good.
I'm not that good at Twitter.
I actually I started using Twitter a little bit yesterday or 2 days ago. It's kind of annoying. Trump didn't respond to me, freaking asshole. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, we talked about, we got the book here, the Ketogenic Edge Cookbook. You can find that on the website. I'm going to send you some chocolate. I'll end this broadcast now. You guys, thanks a lot for watching. Frank, you got any last words for the crazy people out there, all these meat tards?
Well, Tristan, thank you so much for having me. Thank you guys for tuning in today. I guess that's it. Hopefully, if you guys have any questions that I missed, or you want any specific details, just feel free to reach out to me on my Instagram or my YouTube channel.
There we go. I suggest, I want vlogs. I want vlogs from your work at the bar.
Yeah, I wish I could film in Manhattan, but yeah, I can't. It's very difficult to film down there. You get thrown out of places. I've lost jobs. Like, it's not.
Oh, man.
If I could, I would, man. I would.
Crazy. All right, guys. So it's been another episode of Eat Meat, Make Families. We're out of here. All right, let me see.